I never thought that I would be the kind of person who would end up at Walmart. Not that there's anything wrong with it. People need jobs and Walmart needs people. It's just that I always imagined myself doing something different with my life by 25. Maybe working at some trendy startup or finishing grad school. Instead, I found myself filling out an application for the overnight stocking position at Walmart, located on the outskirts of West Branch, a small town that barely registered on most maps. Life has a way of humbling you. After my mom got sick and the medical bills started piling up, my fancy graphic design degree from a state university meant nothing. What mattered was a steady paycheck and health insurance. Walmart offered both. The hiring process was surprisingly quick. I submitted my application on a Tuesday and had an interview on Thursday, and by the following Monday, I was watching orientation videos in a cramped back room that smelled like microwave popcorn and industrial cleaner. The HR lady, Brenda, was pleasant enough, if a bit robotic in her delivery of company policies and expectations. "The night shift isn't for everyone," she said, sliding a folder across the table to me. "Hours are 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. 4 days a week. You'll be responsible for stocking shelves, organizing inventory, and the occasional customer assistance. Though honestly, we don't get many customers after midnight." I nodded, thinking about how I would need to completely flip my sleep schedule. But the extra $1.50 an hour for overnight work would make a difference in my mom's pharmaceutical costs. "One more thing," Brenda said, her voice dropping slightly as she pulled out a single sheet of paper. It wasn't printed on Walmart letterhead like everything else had been. Instead, it was a plain white page with typed text. "These are the special protocols for overnight staff at this location. Consider them additional store policies." The paper listed 5 rules. Rule 1. All overhead lights will dim at exactly 2:13 a.m. for approximately 17 minutes. Remain in your assigned section during this time. Do not use flashlights or phone lights. Rule 2. If you hear your name called over the intercom between midnight and 5 a.m., do not respond. Continue working. If the calling persists, hum any commercial jingle that you can remember. Rule 3. The family restroom near Sporting Goods is off limits to all night shift employees. Use only the facilities at the front of the store. Rule 4. If you encounter a customer who appears to be sleepwalking, inform a manager immediately using Walkie Channel 3. Do not touch them or block their path. Rule 5. If you find merchandise arranged in a perfect circle anywhere in the store, do not disturb it. Radio a manager with code phrase, "Section reset needed." I read the rules twice, waiting for Brenda to crack a smile and tell me that it was all a prank they played on new hires, but her expression remained serious. "These are non-negotiable," she said firmly. "Failure to comply with these protocols is grounds for immediate termination. Do you understand? Is this some kind of joke?" I asked. Brenda's face hardened. "No, it is not. These rules exist for the safety of our employees and our customers. Do you understand them?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I understand." "Good. Sign at the bottom, please." I signed, feeling a flutter of unease. But I needed this job, and every workplace had its quirks, right? Maybe this was some weird corporate loss prevention strategy, or a way to deal with a particular breed of strange customer that shopped in the middle of the night. I was assigned to work with Mickey, a stocky guy in his 30s who had been with Walmart for nearly a decade. He would train me for my first week. "You read the special rules?" he asked as he showed me how to use the inventory scanner. "Yeah," I replied. "What's that all about?" "Some kind of security thing." Mickey glanced around before answering, despite the store being empty except for a few other night staff. "Just follow them, okay? Don't ask too many questions. It's better that way." I wanted to press him for more information, but his closed-off body language made it clear the topic was finished. Instead, I focused on learning the scanner system and the proper way to stock shelves. My first few nights were uneventful. The work was physically demanding but straightforward. Unbox products, check inventory, stock shelves, break down cardboard. Repeat until shift end. The store had an eerie quality to it at night. The two bright fluorescent lights, the endless expanse of empty aisles, the occasional echoing footsteps of another employee somewhere unseen. The only customers were either insomniacs grabbing late-night necessities or third-shift workers from nearby factories, stocking up during their lunch breaks. They rarely needed help, which suited me fine. I was still learning where everything was located at in the store. It wasn't until my fourth night that I experienced the first rule in action. I was in the cereal aisle methodically arranging boxes of Cheerios when the lights above me dimmed substantially. The sudden change made me jump, nearly dropping the box in my hands. I glanced at my watch. 2:13 exactly. My first instinct was to pull out my phone for light, but Mickey's voice echoed in my head. Just follow them, okay? I stood frozen, barely able to make out the shapes of the cereal boxes. The entire store had taken on a twilight quality. Not pitch black, but dim enough that details were difficult to discern. I decided to continue working by feel, keeping my movement slow and measured. And that's when I heard it. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, coming down the main aisle that intersected with mine. They had an odd cadence, like somebody dragging one foot slightly. I held my breath, listening as the footsteps grew closer. They stopped at the end of my aisle. I couldn't see clearly in the dim light, but I could make out a tall figure standing there. It appeared to be wearing the standard Walmart vest, but something was off about its proportions. The shoulders too broad, the head too small. The figure stood motionless. I remained equally still, my heart hammering in my chest. After what seemed like an eternity, the figure turned and continued down the main aisle, the dragging footsteps sound fading away. I released my breath, realizing that I had been holding it so long that my lungs burned. Exactly 17 minutes after they had dimmed, the lights returned to full brightness. I blinked at the sudden illumination, quickly looking around. There was no sign of the figure that I had seen and no other employees nearby. When my shift ended, I caught up with Mickey in the break room. Hey, about my last shift, the lights dimming at 2:13, I said quietly. I saw someone or something. Mickey immediately tensed. We don't talk about that, he replied, voice barely above a whisper. Just follow the rules, that's all you need to know. But, listen, he cut me off leaning in. Everyone who works here has seen things, weird things. But the ones who make it are the ones who just follow the rules and mind their own business. Understood? I nodded, troubled by his reaction. As I was leaving, he called after me. Oh, and Jamie, start bringing headphones. Music helps during that time. Just don't use the light on your phone. Over the next few weeks, I settled into the routine of night shift work. My body adjusted to sleeping during the day and I became more efficient at stocking. The rules remained a constant background presence in my mind, but nothing unusual happened. Until the intercom incident. It was a slow Tuesday night. We had a light truck delivery, so most of us had finished our stocking early and moved on to zoning, the process of pulling products to the front of shelves and making everything look neat and organized. I was in the health and beauty section, methodically arranging bottles of shampoo when the intercom crackled to life. Jamie. A woman's voice called, sweet and melodic. Jamie, could you please come to the service desk? Jamie, to the service desk, please. I froze, remembering Rule 2. The store's customer service desk closed at 10 p.m. when the night shift began. There shouldn't be anybody there to call for me. I continued arranging shampoo bottles, trying to ignore the summons, but my hands had begun to shake. 30 seconds later, the intercom crackled again.
Jamie,
the voice said, no longer sweet but sharper, more insistent.
You're needed urgently at the service desk. Jamie to the service desk, now, please.
I hummed the first commercial jingle that came to mind. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, under my breath, focusing intently on the bottles in front of me.
Jamie.
The third call made me jump. The voice had changed completely, dropping several octaves into a growl that didn't sound human at all. The intercom system emitted a high-pitched whine of feedback. I hummed louder, hands trembling so badly now that I knocked over a row of conditioner bottles. The jingle wasn't working, and so I switched to another, that old Meow Mix commercial, humming more forcefully. A hand touched my shoulder and I nearly screamed. Hey, you good? It was Daryl, one of the other Night Stalkers. You're humming pretty loud. Did you hear that? On the intercom? I asked, my voice unsteady. Daryl's expression shifted subtly. Hear what? Somebody called my name 3 times. He glanced around and then lowered his voice. Huh, first time. I nodded. It happens to everyone eventually. It's different for each person. Some hear family members, some hear bosses from old jobs. The important thing is you didn't answer or go to the service desk. What happens if I do? I couldn't help asking. Daryl shook his head. A girl named Monica found out about 6 months before you started. She's not with us anymore. She quit. His expression darkened. Something like that. After that shift, I couldn't sleep despite the blackout curtains in my apartment. I kept hearing that final growling version of my name whenever I closed my eyes. Instead of forcing sleep, I opened my laptop and searched for information about the Walmart that I worked at. Most of the results were benign. Job postings, store hours, the occasional complaint about service on Yelp or Google. But on the 3rd page of results, I found a link to a local news article from 3 years ago. Missing Walmart employee case remains unsolved. The article was brief, describing how a night shift employee named Jack Alexander had disappeared during his shift. Security cameras showed him entering the family restroom near Sporting Goods at approximately 3:15, but there was no footage of him exiting. Police had found no signs of foul play and the case remained open but inactive due to the lack of evidence. The family restroom near Sporting Goods. Rule 3. I searched for more information about Monica, the employee that Daryl had mentioned, but I found nothing. Expanding my search to include missing persons in West Branch over the past year yielded no results for anybody by that name. I was about to give up when I noticed a community forum for local residents and a thread about local job opportunities. I found a comment from a user named Big Mama 82. Wow, what a name. Avoid the night shift at the Walmart on Route 75. My daughter worked there for 2 months and started having severe psychological issues. She claimed that the store was different at night and that something was hunting the employees. She quit after having a complete breakdown. It's been nearly a year of therapy and medication and she still wakes up screaming about the lights going out in circles on the floor. I closed my laptop, my mind racing. What exactly was going on at that Walmart? Were the rules actually protecting us from something, and if so, what? The next night at work, I tried to act normal despite my growing anxiety. I noticed things that I hadn't before. How the night managers always worked in pairs, never alone. How certain sections of the store had small, inconspicuous symbols drawn at the corners of the floor tiles. How everyone wore a small pin on their vest that wasn't standard Walmart issue, a tiny blue star. During our break, I cornered Mickey in the smoking area outside the employee entrance. Tell me what's really going on here, I demanded. I found articles about missing employees, posts about people having breakdowns. This isn't normal. Mickey took a long drag of his cigarette, considering me carefully. How long have you been here now? A month? 5 weeks? He nodded. And you've always followed the rules. Of course. You're doing better than most. Look, this location has issues. Been that way since they built it. What do you mean since they built it? Mickey dropped his cigarette, crushing it under his boot. You ever wonder why this place is so far from the center of town? Why they put a Walmart on the edge of that forest instead of closer to the highway exit where all the other retail is? I hadn't, but now I was curious. This land was cheap because nobody would develop it. Local tribes wouldn't go near it. Early settlers had avoided it. Even the logging companies skipped this patch when they cleared most of the surrounding forest. Why? Old stories, bad ground, thin places, he shrugged. Whatever you want to call it, all I know is corporate got a good deal, ignored the warnings, and now we have the rules. So these rules, they keep us safe from what exactly? Mickey fidgeted with his blue star pen. You ask too many questions, Jamie. That's how people get into trouble. Just follow the rules, collect your paycheck, and try not to think too much about the rest. That shift, I did the exact opposite, and I couldn't stop thinking about Mickey's warning as I restocked the dairy section. The coolers hummed monotonously, a sound that usually faded into background noise, but tonight it seemed ominous, almost like a distant whispering. At 1:45, Diane, one of the night managers, approached me with unusual urgency. We need extra hands in the garden center, she said, already turning to walk away. Follow me. The garden center was on the far side of the store, partially outdoors but enclosed with high fencing and a greenhouse-style roof. At night it was closed to customers, the doors to the exterior locked and alarmed. When we arrived, I saw why Diane needed help. In the center of the concrete floor, dozens of potted plants had been arranged in a perfect circle. Soil from several broken pots was scattered around, and in the center of the circle sat a single garden gnome figurine facing the eastern fence. Section reset needed in the garden center. Within minutes, the other night manager, Leonard, arrived with a strange metal box. He wore thick gloves as he opened it, revealing what looked like coarse salt mixed with dried herbs. Stand back, Leonard instructed, walking slowly around the circle of plants, sprinkling the mixture just outside its perimeter. Once complete, he placed a small white candle at 4 points around the circle, aligned with a compass's directions. I watched in disbelief as he lit each candle and then began speaking in a language that I didn't recognize, something guttural and ancient sounding. Diane noticed my expression. First circle, she asked quietly. I nodded, unable to form words. Somebody has to reset it before dawn or things get worse. Much worse, she explained. Who arranged the plants like this? I finally managed to ask. Diane's expression was grim. Not who, what? After Leonard finished up with the strange ritual, he and Diane carefully dismantled the circle, making sure not to disturb the salt mixture. The plants were returned to their proper places, the broken pots and spilled soil cleaned up. The gnome figurine was placed in Leonard's metal box. We'll need to monitor this section closely for the next few nights, Diane told me. If you're assigned here, be extra vigilant and report anything unusual immediately. What should I be looking for? I asked. Merchandise moving on its own, cold spots, the smell of wet earth even though nothing's been watered. She hesitated and then added, and if you hear digging sounds from beyond the fence, radio immediately and leave the area. That night it marked a turning point. It became impossible to pretend that this was just a normal job with some crazy policies. Something was happening here, something beyond ordinary explanation. I started paying closer attention to my colleagues. noting their behaviors and reactions. Some, like Mickey, seemed resigned to the strangeness, accepting it as a part of the job. Others displayed various coping mechanisms. Trisha from Housewares wore religious symbols from at least 5 different faiths around her neck. Dennis from Electronics muttered protection prayers under his breath whenever he had to walk through certain sections alone. Lacey from Health and Beauty would only communicate through written notes between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., claiming, "They can't track what you don't say out loud." I began keeping a journal, documenting these strange occurrences. Night 37. Lights dimmed at 2:13 as usual. Heard dragging footsteps again, but also a soft clicking sound, like fingernails on tile. Temperature in frozen foods dropped to near zero, causing frost to form on the outside of the freezer doors. Night 39. Found a perfect circle of cereal boxes in aisle 7. Followed protocol and called for reset. Leonard responded, performed the usual ritual. I noticed that he used different colored candles this time, black instead of white. Night 42. Someone called my name over the intercom again. It was a female voice, different from last time. When I didn't respond, I heard something that sounded like a child crying from the direction of the garden center. Night 45. The lights didn't come back on after the 17 minutes. Extended darkness lasted for an additional 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Multiple footsteps could be heard throughout the store. Diane was on walkie-talkie instructing everyone to stay perfectly still and close your eyes. I knew that I should quit. I mean, any rational person would have walked out after experiencing even a fraction of what I had witnessed. But the truth was, I couldn't afford to. My mother's condition had worsened, requiring more expensive treatments. The health insurance from Walmart was keeping her alive, and perversely, they had started giving me more hours and even a small promotion to night lead in grocery, which came with a $1 raise. It was as if the store, or whatever controlled it, was rewarding me for my compliance. 2 months into my employment, I was assigned to train a new hire named Chris. He was a college student taking a semester off, jovial and talkative. I liked him immediately, which made what had happened even worse. "So what's with the weird rules they gave us?" he asked as I showed him how to stock the frozen section. "Is it some kind of hazing thing?" "No," I said firmly. "Those rules are serious. You need to follow them exactly." Chris laughed. "Oh, come on, man. Don't use the bathroom by the sporting goods section. Don't answer if somebody calls your name. It sounds stupid to me." I stopped what I was doing and turned to face him directly. "Listen to me carefully. This isn't a joke. People have vanished from this store. Bad things happen when the rules are broken." Something in my expression must have convinced him because his smile faded. "Oh, for real? What kind of bad things?" "I don't know everything," I admitted. "Just promise me that you'll follow them, okay?" He nodded, suddenly serious. "Okay, yeah, I promise." We continued working and Chris seemed to take my warning to heart. At 2:13, when the lights dimmed, he followed my lead, standing still and silent in our aisle. I could sense his fear, but he remained composed until the lights had returned. "What was that all about?" he whispered afterward. "I don't know, but we're safe if we follow the rules." Everything went smoothly until about 4 a.m. when Chris mentioned needing to use the restroom. "Hey, use the ones at the front," I reminded him. Yeah, I remember," he said, heading toward the front of the store. I continued working, but after 15 minutes I realized that Chris hadn't made it back. A knot formed in my stomach. I tried to reassure myself, maybe he had gotten distracted talking to another employee, or perhaps Diane had given him something to do. I radioed for him. No response. I walked to the front restrooms. Empty. A terrible suspicion grew within me. I made my way across the store toward sporting goods. The family restroom door was closed, the occupied sign showing red. "Chris?" I called, knocking gently. "Are you in there?" No answer. I tried the handle. It was locked. Heart racing, I radioed for a manager. "Possible Rule 3 violation," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Family restroom by Sporting Goods." Diane and Leonard arrived within minutes, keys in hand and expressions grim. "How long?" Leonard asked. "At least 20 minutes, I replied. They traded glances. "Too long," Diane murmured. Leonard unlocked the door with his master key, but before opening it, he turned to me. "Wait here, don't come in no matter what you hear, understand?" I nodded, throat too dry to speak. They entered the restroom, closing the door behind them. At first, there was silence, and then I heard muffled voices, Leonard's deep tones speaking those strange words again, Diane responding in kind. A sudden crash made me jump, followed by what sounded like rushing water. And then came the screaming. It wasn't Chris's voice, it wasn't human at all. A high, keening wail that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. I covered my ears, but it did little to block the terrible sound. After what seemed like an eternity, silence fell. The door opened and Leonard emerged alone, his Walmart vest torn and soaking wet. Dark liquid that didn't look like water dripped from his sleeves. "Where's Diane?" I asked. "Where's Chris?" Leonard's eyes were vacant and shell-shocked. "Diane is handling it. The boy crossed over. We couldn't bring him back." "What does that mean? What happened to him?" "He's gone," Leonard said flatly. "We'll tell his family he never showed up for his shift. The company will take care of it." "Take care of it? We need to call the police," I insisted. Leonard grabbed my arm, his wet fingers leaving burning cold marks on my skin. "Hey, listen carefully, there's nothing the police can do. Chris is somewhere else now, somewhere that they can't reach, somewhere we can't reach." "I don't understand." "You don't need to understand, you just need to follow the rules." He released my arm. "Go home, your shift is over. Don't come back until tomorrow night." "But..." "That's an order. And Jamie, don't write this in your little journal. Some things shouldn't be recorded." I stared at him, shocked that he knew about my private journal. He smiled grimly. "We see more than you think. Now go home." I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the local library, which opened at around 9, and I used their computers to research the history of the land where Walmart was built. Most of the information was mundane. Property records showing the land had been sold to Walmart's parent company 15 years ago by a local farming family. Before that, it had been undeveloped for as long as records exist. But in the Historical Society's archives, I found references to the area in settlers' journals from the 1840s. They called it the hollow ground or the waiting place, and they avoided it entirely. One account described a trapper who had set up camp there disappearing, leaving behind only a perfect circle of his possessions around a cold fire pit. Indigenous histories were harder to find, but I discovered an interview with a local tribal elder from the 1970s who had mentioned the area as a thin ground, a place where the other side presses close, and spoke of ancient protocols to keep those who wait below from crossing over. By the time I left the library, my hands were shaking. The connections were too strong to ignore. The rules at Walmart weren't arbitrary. They were a modernized version of old protections against whatever existed in that place. I really should have quit then. I should have walked away and never looked back. But I still needed the money, and more than that, I needed answers. That night, I returned to work. Chris's disappearance had been handled exactly as Leonard had said. The official story was that he had never shown up for his shift and that he was marked as a no-call, no-show in the system. When I asked other employees about him, they either didn't remember him or pretended not to. Only Mickey acknowledged what had happened. "You were training him, right?" he asked during our break. "The kid who used the wrong bathroom." I nodded, relieved that somebody else remembered. "That's how it goes sometimes," Mickey said, his voice heavy with resignation. "The rules are there for a reason." "But what happened to him?" I pressed. "Leonard said that he crossed over. What does that mean?" Mickey was silent for a long moment. "You ever hear of liminal spaces? Thresholds between places?" I nodded. "This store, this whole lot is built on a place like that, a threshold. The rules keep us on this side. Break them and you might end up on the other side." "The other side of what?" "I don't know, man, and I don't want to know. Why do you ask so many questions?" He tapped his blue star pin. "Have the managers given you one of these yet?" I shook my head. They will soon. It's kind of a protection, an old symbol. Means that you're a part of the knowing ones." "The what?" "Those who know and respect the rules. The ones who keep the balance." He glanced at the clock on the break room wall. "Oh, break's almost over. Just be careful. I think you're already in deeper than you realize." Mickey was right. The next night, Leonard called me into the management office and presented me with a small blue star pen. "You've been with us for 3 months now. You've seen things and you've followed the rules. It's time you became a full member of the night team." The pin looked ordinary enough, a 5-pointed star enameled in blue metal. But when I held it, it felt unusually heavy and cold to the touch. "What exactly does this mean?" I asked as I fastened it to my vest. "It means you're one of us now," Leonard replied. "It means you have certain responsibilities and certain protections." "From what?" Leonard's eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, from the consequences of working here. The pin marks you as belonging to this side. As long as you wear it while you're in the store, you'll be less noticeable to what dwells beyond the threshold. And if I don't wear it, well then you're on your own." He slid a folder across the desk. "These are your new duties. Study them carefully." The folder contained a more detailed version of the rules, plus some additional protocols. Extended Protocol 1. During light dimming at 2:13 to 2:30 a.m., employees must perform the acknowledgement. Stand still, eyes forward, and silently recite. "I see only what is mine to see. I hear only what is mine to hear. I remain on this side of the veil." Extended Protocol 2. Blue star pins must be worn at all times while on the premises. If a pin is lost, exit the building immediately and report to management next shift. Extended Protocol 3. If a customer appears with completely black eyes or is speaking in multiple overlapping voices, direct them to the garden center and immediately alert management with code phrase, "Special Assistance in Garden." Extended Protocol 4. Should you observe any employee violating the rules, do not intervene directly. Report to management immediately. Do not discuss the violation with the employee in question. Extended Protocol 5. In the event of a full threshold breach, announced as code white over the intercom, proceed immediately to the center of the store and form a circle with the other Blue Star employees. Remain in position until the all clear is given. I look up from the papers, my mouth dry. Has there ever been a full threshold breach? Leonard nodded grimly. And twice in the 15 years that this store has been open. Both times we contained it. Barely. Contained what? You don't want to know those details, Jamie. Trust me on that. He tapped the folder. Memorize these. Your life depends on it. And now that you're a Blue Star, you'll be expected to help with resets when needed. The circles, I said, like the plants in the garden center. Yes, among other things. Being a Blue Star employee changed things. Other night shift workers treated me differently, with a mixture of respect and wariness. I was included in conversations that would stop when non-Blue Star employees approached. Diane and Leonard assigned me to more sensitive areas of the store, places where incidents happened more often. I learned that certain sections were more problematic than others. Garden Center was the worst, being the closest to the exterior of the building and the forest beyond. Sporting goods with its hunting equipment and weapons was another hotspot. The family restroom was positioned as a confluence of what Leonard called threshold lines, invisible boundaries where the barrier between our world and whatever was on the other side grew thin. The work became more than just stocking shelves. I was taught how to recognize signs of threshold thinning, unexpected cold spots, electronic malfunctions, the smell of ozone or wet earth, merchandise that rearranged itself when nobody was looking. I learned to perform these minor resets, small rituals involving salt, iron filings, and specific words to strengthen the barrier when minor breaches occurred. These happened several times a week, usually small manifestations like products arranged in patterns or strange writing appearing on bathroom mirrors. All the while, I kept thinking about Chris and the others who had disappeared. Were they dead? Or were they somewhere else, as Leonard had suggested? Was there any way to bring them back? I began researching more intensely during my off hours, diving into books about liminal spaces, threshold theory, and ancient barrier rituals. I found striking similarities between the protocols that we followed at Walmart and protected practices from dozens of cultures throughout history. My mother had noticed the change in me. "You look exhausted, honey," she said during one of my visits to her at the care facility. "Is that job working you too hard?" "I'm good, Mom," I lied. "Just adjusting to the night schedule is all." She took my hand, her fingers frail but her grip surprisingly strong. "No, there's something different about you. Something in your eyes." She leaned closer. "You're seeing things, aren't you? Things that shouldn't be there." My breath caught. "What? What do you mean?" She sighed, a sound heavy with secrets. "Oh, the Mercerland. That's where you're working at, isn't it? That Walmart." "You know about the Mercer property?" I asked, shocked. "Oh, everybody from the old families know," she replied. "Your grandmother used to tell stories about the hollow ground, about the things that would happen there." "Why didn't you say anything when I took the job?" "Oh, I hope the stories were just that. Stories." She looked away. "And we needed the insurance." "Mom, people have disappeared there. Something is really happening at that store." "The veil is thin in that place," she murmured. "Always has been. That's why the rituals are important. The rules." "How do you know about those?" I was stunned. "Not the specific ones that they use now, but every generation had them. Ways to stay safe on that land." She squeezed my hand. "Jamie, listen to me. Be careful, don't get pulled in too deep. Those who spend too much time guarding the threshold eventually become a part of it." My mother's warning haunted me, but I couldn't walk away. Not just because of the financial necessity, but because I had become invested in understanding what was happening there. And if I'm being honest, I had started to feel a sense of purpose in my role as a guardian of sorts. A few nights later, I experienced my first major incident. It was just after 3 a.m. and I was working in the seasonal section, which had been converted for Halloween. Plastic skeletons, bags of candy, and costume displays filled the area. A celebration of the macabre that felt oddly trivial given what I now knew about real terror. I was arranging a display of pumpkin-scented candles when I felt a sudden drop in temperature. My breath fogged in front of me despite the store's heating system running at full blast. The scent of wet earth and decaying leaves filled the air. Following protocol, I reached for my walkie-talkie to report the warning signs of a threshold thinning. Before I could press the talk button, however, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. A child's laugh, high and tinkling, coming from the next aisle over. We didn't allow children in the store after 10 p.m. No exceptions. I moved cautiously to the end of my aisle and peered around the corner. The Halloween costume section was dimly lit, the display of masks and makeup kits creating unsettling shadows. At first, I saw nothing off, but then I spotted her, a small girl perhaps 7 or 8 years old, standing with her back to me. She wore what looked like an old-fashioned nightgown, yellowed with age. Her hair hung in long dark tangles down her back. "Hello?" I called softly, remembering protocol. Children weren't explicitly mentioned in the rules, but my instincts screamed danger. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" The girl didn't respond. She was staring at a display of Halloween masks, her head tilted at an unnatural angle. I raised my walkie-talkie, intending to call for a manager when the girl spoke. "They don't look real," she said, her voice sounding very strange, as if coming from much farther away than a few yards between us. "Not like the faces below." My finger hovered over the call button. "What faces?" I asked, buying time while trying to remember if there was a specific code phrase for child apparitions. She began to turn slowly, jerkily, like a wind-up doll with damaged gears. "Would you like to see? They're waiting for more. Always waiting for more." I pressed the button. "Code blue and Halloween, aisle 14. I said, using the general emergency phrase when unsure of the specific protocol. As the girl continued her unnatural turning motion, I caught a glimpse of her profile. Where her face should have been was only a smooth, blank surface of skin, featureless except for a single vertical line where a mouth might be. I backed away, my training momentarily forgotten in the face of pure terror. The girl, or whatever was wearing the shape of a girl, continued rotating until she faced me fully. The line where her mouth should be split open, widening impossibly into a gaping maw that stretched from where her hairline would be down to where her chin should end. From that cavernous opening came the child's laugh again, but it doubled and tripled upon itself, as if multiple children were laughing in imperfect unison. "Jamie," the voices said together, "we've been waiting for you. Don't you want to follow the rules? Rule number 6. When the children call, you must answer." "That's not one of the rules," I said, continuing to back away. "There are only 5 rules." The thing's head tilted even further, nearly touching its shoulder at an impossible angle. "On your side, perhaps." Leonard appeared beside me so suddenly that I almost screamed. He grabbed my arm, his grip painfully tight, and thrust a small object into my hand, a tiny cloth bag filled with blue string. "Throw it," he commanded. "Now." I hurled the bag toward the child. When it hit the floor at the creature's feet, there was a sound like sizzling bacon and a flash of pale blue light. The temperature in the aisle instantly rose, and the smell of earth was replaced by the acrid scent of burnt hair. The child thing convulsed once, the gaping mouth snapping shut, and then between one blink and the next it was gone, leaving only a small, perfect circle of frost on the linoleum floor where it had stood. What was that thing? Leonard's face was grim. "A scout. They send them through sometimes, testing for weakness." He pulled out a small vial of what looked like salt and carefully poured it in a circle around the frost mark. "This is the 3rd one this month. The barrier is wearing thin." "What did you give me to throw?" "Iron filings, graveyard dirt, and St. John's wort. It's an old remedy." He finished the salt circle and straightened up. "Hey, you did well. Not everyone keeps their wits when facing their first manifestation." "It knew my name," I said, still shaken. Leonard nodded solemnly. "Yeah, they always do. It's part of how they try to establish connection. Use your name, make it personal. Try to add new rules that you'll follow without thinking. He patted his blue star pen. This helps protect against their influence, but not completely. The child said something about faces below. What was that about? Leonard hesitated. There are things that you're not ready to know yet, Jamie. Some knowledge is dangerous until you've been properly prepared. I think I deserve to know what I'm facing, I insisted, especially if it knows my name. He sighed heavily. Fine, but not here. Meet me in the manager's office after we finish cleanup. Leonard was waiting for me when I arrived at the small office tucked behind the customer service desk. The room was different than I had remembered it from my initial interview. Symbols had been painted on the walls in dark blue, and a large map of the store was spread across the desk, marked with dozens of small red X's. Sit, Leonard said, gesturing to the chair across from him. What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. Not all blue stars are cleared for this level of information. I sat, noting the serious shift in his demeanor. Usually stoic, Leonard now appeared actually troubled. This store, this entire structure was built as a containment mechanism. He began. Not just a store. Walmart corporate knows what this land is, what it contains. And that's a threshold, right? Yes, a weak point between worlds. He pointed to the map. These X mark the spot where the barrier is the thinnest. You've noticed that they cluster in certain areas, the garden center, sporting goods, the family restroom. I nodded. What you may not have realized is that they form a pattern. He traced lines connecting the X's. A circle with 5 points of particular weakness. I stared at the resulting pentagram shape, like a 5-pointed star. Exactly like the pins that we wear. The symbol serves as both a warning and protection. Leonard leaned back. The entity that spoke to you tonight is one of the many that exist on the other side. They want to cross over. To them, our world is nourishing. So the rules keep them from crossing. The rules keep us from inadvertently helping them cross. Each one addresses a specific vulnerability in the barrier. He ticked them off on his fingers. The dimming lights at 2:13. That's when the barrier naturally thins and they can see us better. We stay still and quiet to avoid drawing attention. And the names over the intercom. They can mimic voices and use these storage systems to call to us. Answering it acknowledges them, creates a connection that they can use to pull you partially across. The bathroom by sporting goods. It's positioned at a major weak point. Plus water, running water creates conduits that they can use. That's why we don't use that restroom. The sleepwalking customers. Leonard's expression darkened. Not customers at all. They're people who have been partially pulled across. Their consciousness is already on the other side, but their bodies remain here, caught between worlds. We don't interfere because touching them could pull you over too. And the circles of merchandise. They're attempts at creating portals. Circles have power. They're using our own products to create doorways. When we find them, we have to perform the reset ritual to close the potential opening before it stabilizes. I thought about this information, connecting it with my own experiences and research. The child thing had mentioned faces below. What did that mean? Leonard was silent for a long moment. The entities on the other side, they collect. Trophies, I suppose you could say. Faces are very prized. A chill ran through me as I thought of the featureless child with its gaping maw. From the people who disappear, like Chris. Yes. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The company knows the risks. It's why the pay and benefits are so good. It's why certain incidents are handled internally. This is insane, I said. Why not close the store, demolish it? Because the threshold would remain. Without the containment measures we have in place, it would grow, it would spread. The protocols don't just protect us, they protect everybody in West Branch. So we're the sacrificial lambs? I asked bitterly. No, we're the guardians. There's a difference in that. Leonard opened his desk drawer and removed an old leather-bound book. It's time you learn the deeper protocols, the ones that can save you if the worst happens. He placed the book in front of me. Its cover was unmarked, but the leather felt unusually warm to the touch, almost like skin. Study this, memorize the words and symbols. If you're ever caught in a full breach, this knowledge might be the only thing that brings you back. I took the book, feeling its weight, heavier than its size had suggested. Has anybody ever come back after being taken? Leonard's silence was answer enough. The book that Leonard gave me contained knowledge that both fascinated and terrified me. Written in multiple hands across generations, it documented the history of the hollow ground and the various entities that sought passage through the threshold. There were detailed accounts of manifestations dating back to the 1800s, rituals for strengthening the barrier, and emergency protocols for different types of breaches. Some pages contained symbols that hurt my eyes to look at directly, while others featured diagrams of the land with notations in languages that I couldn't identify. The most disturbing section detailed what happened to those who had crossed over, willingly or not. According to the book, they didn't simply die. They were absorbed, their consciousness and physical forms separated and repurposed. The entities on the other side couldn't create their own bodies to cross over, so they needed ours. I read the book during my off hours, trying to process the nightmare reality that I had stumbled into. My work performance suffered as I struggled with sleep deprivation and constant anxiety. The only consolation was that my mother's treatments were working. She was showing signs of improvement, which meant my sacrifice was at least accomplishing something good. One afternoon, I awoke from a fitful sleep to find a text message from Diane. Emergency meeting tonight, all blue stars at 9 p.m. before shift. I arrived at the store an hour early, finding the parking lot unusually empty except for employee vehicles. The night crew was gathered in the training room, all 18 Blue Star members looking tense and uncertain. Leonard and Diane stood at the front, their expressions grave. Behind them was a whiteboard covered with symbols from the book, along with a timeline of some sort. Thank you all for coming, Leonard began once everybody had settled. We're facing an unprecedented situation. The barrier has been weakening steadily for months, and our standard measures aren't stabilizing it anymore. Murmurs spread through the room. Diane raised her hand for silence. We've recorded 17 minor breaches in the past week alone, she continued. The corporate containment team has analyzed the data and believes we're approaching a potential full threshold breach. The room went quiet. I felt Mickey tense beside me. When? Somebody asked. Tomorrow night, October 31st. Of course, Halloween. The day when the veil between worlds was traditionally the thinnest. We'll be implementing Emergency Protocol Omega, Diane said, pointing to a complex symbol on the whiteboard. Every blue star will be positioned at strategic points throughout the store. The building will be closed to customers from 8 p.m. onward, under the pretense of inventory. What about non-Blue Star employees? I asked. They've been given the night off, Leonard answered. This operation involves only initiated guardians. He distributed maps showing our assigned positions. I was placed in sporting goods near the family restroom, one of the major weak points. Each of you will maintain your position regardless of what you see or hear, Diane instructed. You'll be provided with barrier kits containing salt, iron, and other necessities. Under no circumstances are you to leave your assigned area until the all clear is given. And if the barrier fails completely, Mickey asked the question that everybody was thinking. Leonard's face was grim. Then we implement the final containment. The building has been prepared since its construction for this possibility. Prepared how? I asked. There are charges placed at structural points throughout the foundation, Diane said matter-of-factly. In the event of a complete breach, the entire building will be collapsed inward, sealing the threshold with concrete and steel. Shocked silence followed her statement. With us inside, somebody finally asked. Leonard nodded. If it comes to that, yes. Better 18 souls than the thousands who would be taken if the threshold entities established a permanent foothold in our world. I looked around the room, seeing the same realization dawn on every face. And we weren't just night stalkers or sales associates. We were the last line of defense in a war that most people didn't even know was being fought. And we might not survive our next shift. I spent what might be my last day putting my affairs in order as best I could. I visited my mother, telling her that I loved her without revealing what was happening. I wrote letters to the few friends I had, vague explanations that wouldn't reveal the truth but might provide some closure. I made sure that my rent was paid through the end of the month. As the sun set, I drove to the Walmart one last time. The parking lot was empty except for the employee vehicles, the store's exterior lights dimmer than usual. A sign on the door read, "Closed for inventory" in large red letters. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Blue Star employees moved purposefully, setting up barrier materials at their assigned positions. Leonard and Diane were distributing small cloth bags similar to the one that had banished the child entity. Iron fillings, silver shavings, salt and herbs. Leonard explained as he handed me mine. Last resort if something manifests directly in your zone. Use it only if absolutely necessary. We have a limited supply. In addition to the bag, I received a small blue candle, a vial of clear liquid that smelled strongly of sage, and a piece of paper with words written in that strange language. Memorize these, Diane instructed. If the primary barrier fails, these words will be your personal protection. Speak them while visualizing a shield of blue light surrounding you. How will we know if the barrier is failing? I asked. You'll know, she replied grimly. Trust me. At exactly 11:30, we all took our positions. I stood in my assigned spot near the family restroom, the barrier materials arranged in a small semicircle before me. From here, I could see down several aisles, but not to the other Blue Star positions. We were intentionally spaced to cover maximum area. At 11:45, the store's regular lighting shut off, replaced by emergency lights that cast everything in a dim blue glow. Over the intercom, Leonard's voice recited words from the book, a strengthening ritual that all of us silently joined, touching our Blue Star pins as we did. Midnight approached. I checked my watch nervously, wondering what exactly would happen when the clock struck 12 on Halloween night in a store built on a threshold between worlds. The answer came with a violent shudder that ran through the entire building. The floor beneath me vibrated, shelves rattling as products tumbled down. The emergency lights flickered wildly, and for a moment, I thought that I saw something in the flashes of darkness, shapes moving in the spaces where the light couldn't make it. My walkie-talkie crackled.
Hold positions.
Leonard's voice commanded.
The first barrier is holding.
The shaking subsided, but the air had changed. It felt heavier, charged with static electricity that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. The smell of wet earth and decay filled the store, stronger than I had ever experienced it before. And then came the whispers. Hundreds of them overlapping, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I couldn't make out words, just a constant serration that made my teeth ache and my vision blur at the edges. Something moved at the periphery of my sight, a dark shape sliding along the floor of the aisle to my left. When I turned to look directly at it, it vanished, only to reappear in another spot when I looked away. My walkie-talkie crackled again.
Zone 7 reporting manifestation.
Came Mickey's tense voice.
Multiple shadow forms in the garden center. Zone 4 manifestation confirmed.
Another voice added,
Temperature dropping rapidly in electronics. Maintain the barrier protocols.
Diane responded.
Do not engage unless they enter your immediate area.
I watched as the shadows grew bolder, sliding closer, taking more defined shape with each passing minute. They reminded me of people, or rather the negative space where people should be. Darkness given form and purpose. At 12:17, the first scream came over the walkie-talkie.
They're in through Zone 9. There.
The transmission cut off abruptly.
Zone 9 report.
Leonard demanded, but silence answered him. Another voice broke in, panicked.
Something's happening to the floor in housewares. Oh God, it's opening up.
I wanted desperately to see what was happening in other parts of the store, but I knew leaving my position would weaken the overall barrier. I stood firm, watching as the shadows in my section grew more numerous and substantial. At 12:30, everything changed. The emergency lights failed completely, plunging the store into absolute darkness. In that moment of blindness, I felt something brush against my face. Cold, damp, like wet leather. I jerked back, nearly falling, and I fumbled for my flashlight despite the rules about using lights. Before I could turn it on, the emergency lights flickered back to life, revealing what was in front of me. The floor in the center of my zone had changed. The standard white tiles were now a deep, unnatural black that didn't reflect light. And worse, the blackness seemed to have depth, as if I was looking down into an abyss rather than at a solid floor. And from that darkness, something was emerging. It rose slowly, a mass of shifting shapes that never quite settled into a single form. One moment it appeared human-like, and the next it was a writhing collection of limbs and appendages that made no sense. The only constant was the faces. Dozens of them pressing outwards from the mass like masks embedded in clay. Their expressions frozen in terror or pain. With sick horror, I recognized one of them. Chris, his eyes wide and mouth open in a silent scream. The entity continued rising, more and more of it emerging from the impossible depth in the floor. As it towered over me, reaching nearly to the ceiling, I heard Leonard's voice over the walkie-talkie, calm but urgent.
Full breach confirmed. Initiate final containment. I repeat, initiate final containment.
This was it. The building would be collapsed, sealing us in with these things forever. But before I could process my imminent doom, I heard another sound. My mother's voice, clear as day, cutting through the chaos. Jamie, remember what I told you about the threshold? It wasn't coming from the intercom or my walkie-talkie. It seemed to be speaking directly into my mind. What had she told me? That those who guard the threshold eventually become a part of it. But she had said something else. Something about the old families and their knowledge. The massive entity before me extended what might have been an arm, ending in something between a hand and a claw. As it reached for me, I saw the blue star pin glowing with an intense light, holding the appendage at bay. But the protection was failing, the light dimming as the creature pressed forward. The hollow ground doesn't just take Jamie, it connects. Those caught between can always find their way home if they remember one thing. Thresholds work both ways. That's it. If they could come through to our side then. Acting on instinct and desperate hope, I grabbed my barrier supplies and threw them not at the entity but into the black depth in the floor. I followed with the blue candle lit by the electric blue light of my fading pen. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The blackness in the floor pulsed and the creature before me let out a sound that defied description. Part scream, part thunderclap, part the rending of reality itself. The pull was instant and overwhelming. The entity began to be dragged back toward the opening, its form distorting as it struggled against the suction. All around the store I could hear similar sounds as the breach began to reverse, but I was being pulled too. My feet slid on the smooth floor as the threshold's gravity seized me. I grabbed a shelf, holding on with all my strength as the vortex tried to claim me. Jamie! Leonard appeared at the end of the aisle, fear on his face as he saw what was happening. Let go of the shelf. The final containment has been triggered. You only have seconds to get out. The building had begun to shake violently, not from the breach but from the charges placed in the foundation. The collapse was beginning. The entity made a final, desperate lunge toward me, and I saw Chris's face stretched in its mass, his eyes suddenly focusing on mine with recognition. In that moment, I made my choice. I let go of the shelf and allowed the threshold to pull me forward, not to be claimed by the entity but to pass through to the other side, where perhaps I could find those who had been taken, where perhaps there was a way back that didn't involve letting these horrors into our world. As I fell into the blackness, time seemed to slow. I saw Leonard running toward me, Diane appearing behind him. I saw the ceiling beginning to crack as the charges detonated. I saw the entity being compressed and drawn back into the void along with me. And then I was through, falling into a space beyond understanding. I don't know how to describe where I am now. It's not a physical place in any sense that humans would comprehend. There are no walls or floors or ceilings, no up or down. There is light, but no source for it. There are sounds, but they come from everywhere and nowhere. And there are others here. Chris, Monica, dozens more who were taken over the years. They exist in a strange half state, neither fully conscious nor truly gone. I've learned things in this place, terrible truths about the entities in their world, about why they want to cross over. Our reality is vibrant, dynamic, and rich with energy. Theirs is fading, dying, the last embers of a universe approaching heat death. And they don't take faces as trophies. They take them to remember what it was like to have form, definition, and identity. They are ancient beyond understanding, the last survivors of a reality nearly exhausted. But most importantly, I've learned that my mother was right. Thresholds work both ways. Being caught between worlds doesn't mean being trapped forever, it means having access to both sides. The Walmart is gone, collapsed into rubble that was later cleared away and paved over as a parking lot for a new strip mall. The threshold remains, but it's sealed more effectively than before, buried under concrete and steel and tar. Yet there are other thresholds, other hollow grounds where the veil thins. Places where those caught between might find their way back if they're ever clever and determined enough. I'm searching for one now, gathering the scattered consciousness of Chris and the others as I go. I will find a way to bring us home. So if you work in retail, especially the night shift, pay attention to the rules that they give you. They might seem strange, arbitrary, and even silly, but follow them anyway. Because some stores are built on the wrong ground, and some places should have been left hollow, and some entities are still hungry for new faces to remember. Today's episode is sponsored by Jones Road Beauty. So look, I don't personally wear makeup, but for my partner, she's been through every phase imaginable. The long routines, the drawer full of products, the I'm getting ready, give me 20 more minutes situation. You know how it goes. And honestly, I always thought the whole process looked stressful, especially around the holidays. Parties, dinners, family photos. She'd be juggling a dozen different products just to feel ready. But since finding Jones Road Beauty, her routine is completely changed. The thing she's obsessed with is their miracle balm. She keeps telling me it doesn't mask her skin, it actually makes it look better. More natural, just more glowy and put together. And apparently this one product replaces a bunch of others that she used to use. Blush, bronzer, highlight, miracle balm does it all. Which means getting ready doesn't take nearly as long anymore, especially when we're heading out to holiday events. And speaking of the holidays, starting November 6th, Jones Road is releasing their most giftable holiday collection yet. 5 limited edition trios with new shades and new packaging, the whole deal. They're perfect for anyone who wants an easy, natural, no makeup look. My partner's already eyeing a couple sets for gifts, and probably one for herself, let's be honest. And the best part, all of Jones Road's products are actually good for your skin, and they feel like it too. This holiday season, simplify your routine with makeup that's clean, strategic, and multifunctional. From November 18th to December 1st, Jones Road is doing their first ever Black Friday sale. Go to jonesroadbeauty.com to get up to 20% off site-wide. That's jonesroadbeauty.com for up to 20% off your entire order. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Back in 2018, I was in a difficult position. I had lost my job working security for a local firm and was looking for something on short notice. Add to that, I was in a difficult situation with my then girlfriend. We were on a sort of pause and it was a strange time. In short, I was looking for a job and I found one. There's this charity, which I won't name, that handles distribution of something called the Little Miracle Chest. These have been around since the 80s, but they're very limited in scope. It's these colorful toy boxes that are sent out to first-time parents, mostly in the southern East Coast states. They usually contain a couple of goodies, some parental advice books, a Bible, and a couple other things. It's been around for a while, but I don't think a lot of people talk about it. I read online that a local chapter handling the Little Miracle Chest needed permanent warehouse security, so I applied. I had one of those chests as a kid, and honestly, I loved it. I thought it was a nice callback, especially at the time when I needed stability. For the sake of brevity, I'll just say this up front. I've changed a couple of names around, including my own, just to make sure my position and the location stays anonymous. I met with a guy, let's call him Jonah, friendliest guy that you'll ever meet. Early 50s, honest living kind of guy if you could look past the creepy horn-rimmed glasses. He looked like a cool dad who had stepped out of a 70s commercial. Firm handshake, calming voice. I met him just outside the warehouse and he had the most starched white shirt that I had ever seen. "Jonah," he said, shaking my hand, "and you must be Henry." "You got that right, and glad to be here. It's like I know you already. Do you want the tour?" "Gotta admit," I said, "I'm a bit nervous about the interview." "Interview?" Jonah laughed. "My friend, as far as I'm concerned, the job is yours. We got your application is all. You fit the bill just fine." "You sure?" I asked. "I figured you need some, clarity." "I got a good eye for people," smiled Jonah. "But I suppose I have one question that needs answering if you're so inclined." "Go right ahead." Jonah put a hand up to shield his eyes from the July sun. The guy was clearly an outdoorsy type, being tanned from head to toe. "And do you consider yourself a nurturing man?" he asked. It was a perfectly fair question, but it was difficult to answer. I had this girlfriend, Jill, who I'd been seeing for about 8 months. We got along great and had been talking about moving in together when she revealed something. She had a kid. I had no idea. It had been this thing that she hadn't intended to hide. It just ended up that way. We got along so well, and by the time she wanted to tell me, it had gotten strange to bring it up. I don't think it was nefarious, but it became this strange, sticking point in our story. 8 months, and I'd never once heard that she had a 5-year-old boy at home. At that point, I didn't know if things were complicated because I didn't want to be a stepdad or because she had lied to me. So when Jonah asked me if I was a nurturing man, that's where my thoughts brought me. I zoned out a little and answered as well as I could. I would like to think that I am, I said, but I don't know, it's hard to tell. Well, hey, at least you're honest, smiled Jonah. That makes up for a lot. With that, he gave me a tour of the warehouse. Row after row of little miracle chests, all wrapped in cellophane and ready to be shipped out. The little miracle chests are about 4 feet long, 3 feet wide, and has a rounded treasure chest kind of lid. The thing is made of some solid kind of wood and has these metal handles bolted to the side. It's heavy, at least 30 pounds, and on the side you have all kinds of classic Americana printed. Boys and girls playing in the sun, a white church, green grass, a rainbow, happy couples leaning on one another, but also a few of adventurous motifs, like lions being ridden by young boys, or little girls feeding unicorns with blue sunflower seeds. It's probably the most sugar-coated wholesome thing that you'll ever see, if you haven't seen one already. Before we could enter, Jonah gave me a tap on the back. These things come straight from the printer, so we have these industrial fans going in there to keep the prints from peeling until they settle. So it's loud in there. So we got these headphones, noise canceling and all. Whenever you're in the main hall, you need these on at all times or you'll hurt your hearing. And we can't be held liable for that, Henry. We don't got that kind of money. Fair enough. He gave me the headphones and showed me around the warehouse. There was a definite chemical in the air. It was a prickly smell like old lime and deep ammonia. It stuck with you immediately. And Jonah showed me around the main hall, the loading dock, and the various entryways to keep an eye on. He pointed out a few cameras, all the light sources, and where all the emergency buttons were in case of a fire or a serious accident. Once we got out of the warehouse, we put away the headphones and put them in a locker. And there was this small adjoining office with 2 desks and an honest-to-God fax machine. And Jonah explained a couple of details that I needed to keep in mind. Oh, we got this place pretty cheap because the ground rests on an aquifer, he explained. That's been shifting slightly over the years, causing a sort of incline. We've looked into contractors to help us compensate, but it's a steep bill. Long story short, Henry, you need to check to make sure that none of the chests tumble off the shelves. We don't want them to break. Not one. Is that why you wrap them up like that? I asked. For traction. Traction and to keep the fumes in. You know, they're straight from the printer. We don't want you getting a wheezy lung. We want you around for a while. I appreciate that. Anything else I ought to know? Well, look at you, smiled Jonah, giving me a firm pat on the shoulder. Being proactive. I knew I picked the right guy. Well, since you asked, there's one last thing. He sat down on one of the desks, trying to look like a cool substitute teacher. I bet that move worked better on the younger folks. Well, 2 things, he admitted. 1, don't use the freezer. We've had to throw out a bunch of stuff because of it. And 2, do you know our motto? The motto? Yeah, the little miracle motto. Do you know it? You used to have one as a kid, right? And of course I knew it. It was written on the inside of the lid, so you saw it every time you opened it. God loves all his little miracles, I said. That's the motto. Hot diggity dog, Henry. I knew you were the perfect guy. He gave me another firm clap on the shoulder. A couple of signed papers later, and I was officially hired. There were a couple more things to keep track of, like where we stored keys, what to do at certain times, and how many hours of the day I had to stick around. I had an alternating schedule with a 3-week rotation. The pay was decent, but I had to scale back on a couple of things on account of only working 4 days out of the week. The extra pay for working the occasional weekend and night shift more than made up for it. All in all, I was only down about $100 or so from my last job, and this was both more stable and it had better hours. Jonah was always around, mostly in the office. I saw him try to get that stupid freezer to work a couple of times, but gave up and started using it for storage. Mostly charity merch like hats and cheap jackets. The people who worked there struck me as harmless but socially awkward. They would bring in the occasional plate of cookies or wish me a blessed afternoon, but they would keep to themselves and give me a curious side-eye. Night shifts were a whole different thing. The little miracle chests look a bit strange in the dark. You have to consider the one I used to have was beat up and torn at the edges. These things were fresh from the printer. They looked nothing like my old thing. It had been thrown out somewhere around my later high school years. I grew up in a troubled home. I didn't know it was a troubled home back then, but it was. I was an only child and my parents were constantly complaining about their financials. Whenever the two of them were in the same room for more than an hour, they would yell. There was always something. The broken lawnmower, the extra shift that ruined our weekend plans, the cheap muffler, that strange noise from the shower drain. There was always something, and someone had something to say about it, and they had to say it loudly. I used to get so tired of it that I would lay under my bed with a pillow over my head, trying to drown the sound out. That is until I realized that the little miracle chest that we had was mostly soundproof. I would put blankets and pillows in there and make it my happy place. I would spend a lot of the weekends there with a flashlight tucked under my chin, reading or playing. And whenever I ran out of batteries, I would imagine what was written on the page and just whisper it into the dark. Or I could be an astronaut for a while, floating through space. Or maybe I was a spy, hidden in the trunk of a villain's car. It sounds sad, but I never knew it was. I love that darkness. It was my own and no one could take it from me. I would whisper my little truths into the void, and I felt like it understood me, like it was a friend. I could imagine it saying, "You're our little miracle, Henry, and we'll always be here for you." And every time I looked up, there was that motto, God loves all his little miracles. The job itself wasn't that demanding. I would help out with the occasional loading at the dock, and I would keep the place shut down and safe in the evenings. Most of the time I was walking around the warehouse, listening to a podcast or an audiobook. And the headphones that Jonah gave me were these amazing $400 industrial things that worked as radio, communication, and media player. And he was perfectly fine with me listening to something while on my own. For all his quirks, Jonah was probably the most chill boss that I had ever had. There were a couple of times that I had to step in. A couple of chests had slid a bit too far and I'd have to wrap them up in more cellophane and put them back. Other times, the smell would get so strong that I had to step out for a while. I would get chills from the overhead fans and there was always something sticky to get your shoes stuck in. So it wasn't perfect, but what job is? But my troubles started for real when I started using glasses. I had been riddled with headaches for a while, and Jonah gave me a day off to check with an optician. Turns out I needed glasses. It was a pain to get used to, but even more of a pain to wear them underneath the headphones. I would get this chafing around the edges of my ears from the constant pressure. After a while, I decided to take a break from the headphones, if only for a while, just to give my ears some time to rest. And that's when I noticed something peculiar. The industrial fans weren't really that loud, and barely even a hum. I asked Jonah about it, but he insisted that I wear the headphones or at least earplugs. It's an insurance thing, he argued. It's really important. Please take this seriously, Henry. I didn't want to lie to him, but I did. Whenever no one was around, I would put away the headphones. I would still keep them around my neck if I needed to put them back on, but I would keep them off most of the time. But that put another thought into my head. What about the floor tilt? Was that really a thing? The fans weren't so bad, so maybe this wasn't either. There was this water level tool in the office. I borrowed it from Jonah's desk and I went into the warehouse. I checked the warehouse shelves one by one. None of them were tilted or at an angle. They were all perfectly straight. I had the day shift the following afternoon, and there was a short moment before my lunch break where there was just me and Jonah in the office. He had kicked his feet up on a chair and basked in the heat like a lizard. I had only been with Little Miracles for a few weeks, but I had already grown to enjoy the job. Asking questions about it felt shaky. Jonah looked up at me with a curious expression. "I got a couple of questions about the warehouse," I said. "A couple of things ain't adding up and I need some clarity." "Well, Henry, that's what the good book is for. But I guess I could clear up some of the smaller stuff. Let's start with the headphones. The fans are barely audible. There's no way they could cause any kind of hearing damage." Jonah nodded with a slightly furrowed brow. "All right," he said, "go on. And the shelves, you said the floor was crooked and that the chest keeps sliding. I checked the floor and it ain't crooked and the shelves ain't either." "So what are you asking me, Henry? What's this adding up to?" "There's something you're not telling me. If we're gonna be a team, I need to know what's going on." Jonah got up from his chair and patted me on the shoulder. His frown softened into a trained, quiet smile. He held his hand out, urging me to follow him into the warehouse. We wandered over to the closest chest and Jonah gently placed it on the floor. He unwrapped the cellophane, talking to me as it came undone. The smell of the print unfurled like a carpet, spilling over my senses. The ammonia could have choked me out, but it was the old lime smell that stuck around the longest. "I can't tell you why they slide off the shelves," Jonah said. "It's just something that we have to compensate for." He tapped the chest and opened it, showing me the simple wooden interior. It was empty with the motto printed on the inside of the lid. "The headphones are a courtesy," Jonah sighed. "A couple of folks feel bad about asking if they can play music or listen to something while they're out here by their lonesome. We figure giving a free pass makes the time go a little bit faster. And while we already bought the things." "Jonah, that can't be it. That can't be all there is." He closed the lid and wrapped the chest back up. "Here's God's honest truth," he said. "This entire organization is here to care for the good Lord's little miracles. And if we do what's expected of us, that's what we'll do." There wasn't a hint of a lie. I don't know what I expected. The chests were empty, and while the explanations were weak, they were at least plausible. It was enough to keep my mouth shut for a little while longer. "If there's anything else, you know where to find me," he said. "Stick to the script and you'll do fine." And for some time I did just that. I patrolled those halls day and night, making sure the chest didn't slide off the shelves. I listened to my audiobooks, helped load the trucks, and wrapped the chests in cellophane. And that was all there was to it. I had the thought that maybe Jonah had picked a specific chest to open, so at times I would open others just to check, but they were always empty. For a full month, I didn't think much of it, and that is until one particular night. I didn't use my headphones that evening. My glasses were chafing again. I'd gotten a text from Jill earlier that night, and I kept pacing back and forth, trying to figure out what to respond. Maybe I shouldn't respond at all. The message was part apology, part explanation, and a reminder that despite it all, she missed me. Part of me wanted to say that I missed her back. Another part wanted to walk away. Jonah's question still stuck with me. Am I a nurturing man? As I paced, I noticed one of the chests having slid a little further than usual. A full corner of the chest was hanging off the edge of the shelf. I put my phone away, slid the chest back in place, and stepped back. As I did, I heard something. It was low, like a mumble from behind a pane of glass. "Thank you." I looked back at the chest. I stared at it, dumbfounded. "You're welcome?" There was no response. And of course there wasn't. I mean, how could there be? It might have been the wind, but a part of me knew that it wasn't. That noise brought me back to those childhood summers, hidden away in the safety of my little miracle chest while my parents threw dinner plates and novelty mugs. In the safety of that chest, when I whispered something, I would imagine someone listening, and that someone would sometimes whisper back. And what I heard in that warehouse was exactly what I had imagined that voice to sound like. From that point on, I started looking at the little miracle chests a bit different. I began questioning whether they were affecting me or I was affecting myself. It had been such a small sound, barely audible. A whisper of a thank you. I mean, I could have misheard it. I must have. The only other option was nonsensical. Chests can't talk, and I knew for a fact that these were empty. But I couldn't help it. And during those long hours of the night, I had to look a little bit closer, listen a little longer. And when I couldn't convince myself to stop, I tried to test them. Challenge them even. I would whisper at them, knock on the lid, or pick up and shake them a bit. Of course, nothing happened, but every now and then I would see one of them twitch or rattle. Was it one particular chest that moved, or was it all of them? One night I didn't even bother to try. I just picked up a chest and stared at it, waiting for it to move. I had looked at it for so long that the image sort of blurred, like when you hear a word too many times and it starts to sound like a noise. And then there it was. A nudge, just a little but clear as day. I rushed it, tore away the cellophane and opened it. And of course, it was empty, and I'd accidentally ripped off part of the print, just a corner where the lion was at. I thought about lying to Jonah, but I knew better. Not only did he deserve the truth, but there were cameras to tell the full story. Not that I didn't think he would believe me, but because it didn't matter. No matter if the chest moved or not, I had messed up. I met Jonah in the parking lot on the way to the office. He carried a much too formal suitcase and a copy of today's paper. I caught up and told him flat out what I had seen. The moving chest and the subsequent unwrapping. Jonah nodded and then wielded his newspaper like a judge's gavel. "Henry," he said, "you're still the perfect man for the job, I know you are, and I want to help you." "Well then tell me what's going on, tell me that I'm not crazy." "How about this? You heard about the storm?" It had been the talk of the week. A storm brewing over the weekend with the brunt of it hitting later that evening. The sky had already darkened. "We had a last-minute cancellation and I got no one to help. If you can keep things in check this one night, I'll see what I can do." "Can do about what?" I asked. "What can you do?" "Henry, please," he said, putting his hand on my shoulder. "I'll see what I can do." I agreed. Things were going to be a bit different that evening. I was the only one on site and there would be no one to call for backup. That and the storm was guaranteed trouble. We had to close the fans and lock down the shelves with plastic straps. And because the fans weren't running, I would have to wear a mask with a gas filter, just in case the fumes got too intense. I was going to have to make sure that everything was secure, which would be an effort and a half. Not even an hour into my shift, I started getting warnings about rolling blackouts in the area due to fallen trees cutting out the power lines. 30 more minutes and it reached me. The entire warehouse turned dark with a sudden click. The silence was so palpable that I could hear my heartbeat. It's surprising just how many noises are around you even when it's quiet. You kinda don't notice it unless the power's gone. As the power went out, I could hear the wind picking up. It was pushing into our ventilation, making the warehouse fans squeak in protest. and with a first lightning strike, I heard the shelves rattle. Not because the ground shook, but because they suddenly moved. I checked out the straps on the shelves with a flashlight, trying to figure out what had made them move. I noticed a particular chest on the mid-level that had slipped a bit, and I pushed it back in line. That was the one to keep an eye on. But as the second lightning strike collapsed into the woods outside, the shelves rattled again, and when thunder started to roll, I looked up. It wasn't just one peculiar chest. They were all moving. Some of them were actively fighting against the protective straps. Others seemed to shake like a leaf in the wind. It's like something had kicked them and forced them into action. A couple of the lids flipped up, revealing the empty insides. I could hear the cellophane stretch and strain against some unseen force, pushing the chest every which way. And then the voices. What's happening? Who's there? Is it danger? I tried my best, I really did. I tried to ignore the movement and the whispers. I tried keeping them all still and secure. But one strap on the far end of the warehouse came undone, and one persistent gust of wind made the entire thing lean. I could see that it was about to fall long before I got there. It crashed into another shelf who bore the brunt of the weight, and luckily it held. But one chest on the far end got loose. It collapsed to the floor and splintered on the concrete. Something leaked out of it. It looked like a water and oil mixture, and it had this intense smell of old fruit. I grabbed what remained of the lid and moved it, only to see a small, translucent hand sticking out, no bigger than my thumb. Little claws curled around the fingertips. It was so white that I could see its veins, where a pulse ought to twitch, but it didn't. It lay still. I let the lid go and I backed away. We die, a chest whispered. We're dying, said another. Mother, call for mother. They hissed and rattled, every chest on every shelf. And as the hissing got louder, it turned into a wail, a cry for help drowning into the raging storm. I backed away, not knowing what to do. A couple of straps were coming undone. Some shelves were swaying in the wind, and right there on the floor lay that splintered chest like a broken egg. I'm trying to help, I called out. I can help, just please stop and I'll help. The death man, a chest hissed. Fear the death man. Mother, mother. The calls got louder, a chant for mother, for something to come help them to deal with the death man. I couldn't stay. Defying the storm, I rushed out of the warehouse and into the parking lot. I was drenched in seconds as the rain fell sideways, but I much preferred the howling storm to whatever was happening on those shelves. I couldn't believe it. I ran for my car. I had to call Jonah. I had gotten about 30 feet when I noticed something on the road ahead. It looked like an oncoming flash flood. Mud and trees and bushes being swept up into a big pile, rolling its way across the road. It was far off, but there was something about it. It looked out of place. I stopped for a second to look a little bit closer. It had eyes. It wasn't oozing across the road, it was crawling like a massive reptile. I had mistaken its scales for tree bark. It was a creature, an unreal reptilian thing, and it was coming straight at me. And now that I looked at it, it was fast. I never made it to my car. I turned back to the warehouse and I sprinted as fast as my legs would allow and slammed the door shut behind me. 2 seconds later, the door imploded with a metallic twang, hitting me in the shin bone and sending me sprawling to the floor. Mother, the chest cried. Mother comes. Mother saves. Mother eats the death man. Eat the death man. Something groaned. It sounded like a tree bending in the wind, but there was a tune to it, and it repeated like the croak of an angry frog. The living mudslide reached into the warehouse, only to reveal a 5-clawed forelimb, each claw the size of my leg. It cracked the floor like wet sand. And then a roar. The air rippled and the pressure made my ears pop long before I even heard its sound. It was part hiss, part croak, and part shriek, all wrapped into one furious bellow that rattled the windows. I got up on my feet, wobbling from the gash in my leg just as the thing reached the loading bay doors. Those are solid metal. I thought that they would hold for a while, but they bent wide open with little effort. It was like watching a rabid dog tear into a pillow fort. The storm spilled onto the warehouse floor. The winds shook the shelves as the creature stopped in front of the broken chest. A split white tongue tasted the air, each segment the size of a grown man's thigh. It poked around the splinters and looked up with a pupil the size of a bowling ball. "Kill the dead man," one demanded. Kill him now. Mother, mother." A bellow rolled out of that thing like a revving engine. I saw claws sink into the concrete as it dragged itself forward, heading my way. I hobbled into the main office. I could hear that thing thrashing around trying to follow me. For a second, it stopped. I thought that maybe the door was too small for it. And then I heard a scratching noise like construction tools being dragged across the wall. It was gonna break the entire room. I didn't know where to go or what to do. I couldn't make a run for it, but that thing would be on me in seconds out in the open. I had to keep stalling it, but I didn't know how. It was protecting something young and small hidden within the chest. I don't know what to do. I thought about Jill and not seeing her again, about never answering her last text, only for her to see my name in the obituaries. And then a chime, a ringtone. And Jonah had an extra phone in his top desk drawer, a cheap disposable flip phone, and it was ringing. I pulled it out and answered, gasping for air as my eyes flicked back and forth. Jonah's voice came through the other end.
"Henry, I'm sorry it came to this.
What is this? What do I do?
Where do we go when we're scared, Henry? Where are we safe?
That's what I'm asking. What do I do?
Think, Henry. Where are you safe?"
I blinked. My mind snapped to attention and I looked around the room. And there by the window was the broken freezer. I climbed into it, hiding beneath a pile of merchandise while the storm raged outside. I could hear the wall give way to tooth and claw as a primal bellow rattled the confines of the freezer. I just lay there in the dark, clutching the phone like my childhood flashlight. I calmed my breathing, listening to Jonah's voice.
"Just like back in the day."
What are you talking about? Another bellow. Something bumped the freezer, making it wobble, but it didn't tip over.
"She's upset with you. She hasn't been socialized like the others."
I didn't say anything. I just held the phone tight, closed my eyes, and tried to breathe.
"Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't think it would be this bad. I just thought they'd get a little scared from the thunder, maybe show you something, but..."
Another lightning strike in the distance. Thunder roared across the sky and the creature outside thrashed across the room, trampling the desks and breaking the cheap metal chairs. I could hear a bookshelf crash, and seconds later, something smacked into the freezer. It fell over. The freezer collapsed to the side, but the lid stayed on. I had my breath knocked out of me with a violent thud, but I stifled my wheezing behind a handful of shirts.
"Stay still. Do nothing."
I heard massive lips smacking as something wet dragged across the freezer like sandpaper.
"She doesn't know that you're a nurturing man. She's mourning.
I thought about Jill, and with death staring me in the face, I knew the answer to the question Jonah had asked me on that first day. I was a nurturing man. I had been all along. And if I could get out of there in one piece, I would show them. I kept my eyes closed, just like I had done as a child. I'd pretend the world was different as chaos reigned outside, that they were play fighting or throwing pies like circus clowns. I thought back on those moments in the dark where I'd been an astronaut, ready to set off to distant planets, to make friends with alien life. Or the moments when I had read aloud from some comic book that I had bought with my monthly allowance. A white tongue slipped through the lid of the freezer, tasting the air. A waft of warm swamp breath swept over me as the creature snorted, looking for my scent. But that freezer smelled more like Jonah than me. I'm sorry, I'll do better, I'm sorry.
I know. You're still God's little miracle, Henry. We both are.
Another low, rumbling, bellowing. This one rippled through my body as if softening me up for a bite. The tongue protruded again, missing the sweet top of my head by mere inches. And then it stepped back. It dragged itself across the floor, pulling half of the office along in a sudden U-turn. Order slips and receipts stuck to its scales, whipping around in the wind. Debris from broken desks and flattened chairs clung to it, floating along like a natural disaster. I lay there, tucked among the battered merchandise, listening to the howling storm. The worst had passed and the warehouse chests were quiet.
I'm so proud of you. So proud of what you've become.
And I would stay there until dawn with Jonah, waiting for the wind to stop yelling. Most of the damage was covered by insurance. This part of the county was apparently prone to floods, it seemed, which was one of the reasons it was so cheap. Of course, there was no flood, but I got the sense that they knew that. I met Jonah a couple of days later on a park bench not too far from the warehouse. He was having yogurt and brought a thermos of piping hot coffee. We hadn't spoken since that night, but he seemed just as cheery as always. I wasn't. I need to know what this is. All of this. He looked up at me and then back down at his yogurt. Mango flavor. I never lied to you. The Tapex is God's little miracle. We just make sure they grow up to be good. They need to socialize and to listen. So you send them out to children, you hide them in chests and just let them go? It works. We rarely have a problem. And what are they? Well, in the wild, they're terrifying. But it's like with dogs, and they can be your best friend or roam in packs looking for prey. So that big thing was a wild one. Not a wild one. A poorly socialized one. And then what do the good ones look like? Jonah finished his yogurt, putting the little plastic spoon down. He wiped his lips and rubbed the tips of his fingers together, making a strange sound. His fingertips were solid, like sanded down bone. They can look like a good friend, a kind uncle, a goofy aunt, or a friendly boss who doesn't ask too many questions. Someone who knows you very well. I looked at him, past the horn-rimmed glasses and the calming smile. There was a tint to his eyes that I hadn't seen before, and a slight protrusion along his spine. It's not without purpose, Henry, he said. We're all just trying to be better people. He got up and stretched a little and then let his demeanor sink back into a familiar expression. See you Monday, for the cleanup. I got up, looked him over, and shook his hand. See you Monday. It's been a few years since. The first thing that I did after that meeting was call Jill. It didn't take long for us to reconnect. She gave me every opportunity to back out, but I kept at it. And beyond all my insecurities and questions and worries was a life of calm and warmth, one that I could nurture into something beautiful. a place with bedtime reading and early morning car karaoke. You might be surprised to know that I still work with little miracles. We have one of the chests at home. The creature that lived in it slipped out last summer, having grown too large to stay in the double bottom floor. I don't consider these things a threat any more than I do a stray dog or an outdoors cat. I get it now. I get how they work, and I don't have to wear any headphones at work. They don't mind me hearing the voices. Jonah has never said it out loud, but I think he and I both know where we first met. He's been with me for a long time, all the way back to when I read books by flashlight. Thanks to him, I guess someone listened to all those times when I whispered into the dark. It's a good reminder that God loves all his little miracles, and maybe we should too. Today's episode is sponsored by Soul. The holiday season can be stressful, endless shopping, travel, parties every weekend. When I need to slow down and actually relax, I reach for Soul's out-of-office gummies. The perfect balance of CBD and THC helps me to find my calm and keep my peace of mind. Soul is a wellness brand that believes feeling good should be fun and easy. Soul specializes in delicious, hemp-derived THC and CBD products designed to boost your mood and help you unwind. Their best-selling out-of-office gummies were designed to provide a mild, relaxing buzz, boost your mood, and enhance creativity and relaxation. With 5 different strengths, you can tailor the dose to fit your vibe. From a gentle 1.5 milligram microdose to their newest 15 milligram gummy for a more elevated experience. With wellness at the forefront, you can feel good about what you're putting into your body. All of Soul's products are made from organically farmed, USA-grown hemp and are vegan, gluten-free, low in sugar, and federally legal. Take advantage of Soul's Black Friday Cyber Monday deal now. For a limited time, get 40% off your entire order. Go to getsoul.com and use the code Mr. Creeps. That's getsoul.com, promo code Mr. Creeps for 40% off. Don't miss their best deal of the year. It's going to happen, Jack. Nothing we can do about it. The wheels are already in motion. Higher-ups tell me I need to release the staff by the end of the week. Well then, AM 640 talk of the town becomes what exactly? Ron sighed. Another DJ-less, auto-programmed, adult easy listening station. Ah, Christ on a bike, I said. They're stealing the soul of this industry. Our Arbitron numbers grew last rating cycle. Late-stage capitalism at its finest, he said, leaning back in his chair. It squeaked as if it had something to add. All the companies are cutting costs, and dying industry and all. I feel like I'm surrounded by death these days. Ron leaned forward on his elbows. With a deep breath, he started speaking in a quiet, measured tone. Oh, when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, had an old boss named Terrence Dials Pullman. Man used to drop pearls of wisdom like a clam Santa Claus. The lesson that always stuck with me was, when the chief calls for war, the braves grab their hatchets. He said with a sigh. Chief Brightstar Radio called for war. I'm just grabbing my hatchet. I slumped. My mind raced. I had just renewed the lease on my apartment, for God's sake. I passed up a job in Santa Fe last month because I had a good feeling about this gig. Now I was about to be another unemployed radio DJ. Worse, an unemployed DJ lacking a massive loyal audience to support his transition into a podcast host. You want to smoke? I know you gave him up, but... Yes, I said without hesitation. I had given them up a year ago to help save my golden pipes. If I were going to be the voice of Night Moves Radio, the local overnight call-in show for the Valley, I felt like it was important to treat my instrument better than I had in the past. What a waste. Despite the no smoking signs throughout the station, Ron knocked out 2 Marlboro Reds, tossed me one, and offered a light. The return of smoke to my body was not welcome. The first puff made my mouth tingle, and that sent a message to the rest of my body that a smoke attack was incoming. I started hacking instantly. I remembered why I had quit these. "Oh, that's your good sense fighting your worst instincts," Ron said. "And me all over," I said, hacking in between each word. "Can I tell the audience?" Ron exhaled a cloud of smoke. I watched it float up and dissipate as it hit the nicotine-stained ceiling. Obviously, this wasn't his first office smoking session. "Gotta keep it under our hat for now. I know it ain't easy, but as a personal favor to me, can you pick up your hatchet?" I nodded, took one last cough-fueled pull before putting the butt out on the bottom of my shoe. A powerful desire to leave the office seized me. Despite knowing that it wasn't his call, Ron had just laid me off. If I hung around, I was liable to make an unpleasant situation worse. Ron sensed it. "Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, Jack. I hate it too. Still gotta grab that hatchet, right?" He pointed his smoke at me and shot me a small smile. "Attaboy." As soon as the door closed behind me, I threw up 2 middle fingers and mouthed a string of phrases not fit for public consumption. Or so I thought. While I stood there, mouthing a curse into the wild, I heard a shoe squeak behind me. "You feeling okay, Jack?" It was Manny, our vending machine guy. There was no way he didn't see me just silently lose my mind. I plastered on a smile and turned to face him. "Manny, how goes the wonderful world of vending?" Same stuff, bro. Seriously though, you good?" "Office drama, you know how that goes." "Hell yeah, I do. Charlie, this dude at my job, is always pissing me off. It's like if you don't want somebody eating your food, put your name on the bag, bro." "Whatever, he's got bigger issues than that," Manny said, miming injecting a needle into his arm. "He left like 2 weeks ago and ain't come back." "Is that pretty common in your industry?" Strange stuff happens all the time in this job. Some dudes can't hang. Like, check this out. Last week, I stopped to grab a Slurpee and I heard this guy. "Manny, your nose is bleeding," I interrupted. He touched his face and rolled his eyes. I handed him a tissue. "Third time tonight, man." "It must be the dry air," I said, glancing at the clock. "I've got to run though, feel better, man." I left Manny and made my way to the studio. The place wasn't much to look at, but it felt lived in. These walls looked jaundiced. The carpet was gritty in spots. There was an odd funk that we couldn't air out. But it was home. In the middle of the room sat 2 consoles where my amazing and loyal producer Daphne and I worked. Off in the corner was a small booth where our intern sat and screened calls. Daphne saw my face and instantly knew. She was livid. Hell, I had never seen her angrier. "How did Ron give you the whole Chief Brave thing?" With my positive response, she rolled her eyes. "Oh, such BS. You know he's keeping his job, right? Actually, he's getting a small pay bump." I placed my piping hot coffee mug near the console. "Everything's coming up Millhouse for him, huh?" Daphne didn't hear me. The mug held her attention. If I had a dime for every time she gently reminded me not to put my coffee mug near the equipment, I wouldn't have to worry about losing this job. I removed my mug, leaving only a faint brown ring of coffee where it once stood. Without asking, she handed me a paper towel. "How did you find out about Ron's raise?" "Oh, Kathy in HR is a horrible gossip. Plus, I confirmed it online. Brightstar is doing this to 25 AM stations across the country. On the plus side, we're on the cutting edge of modern radio strategy. I said, cleaning up my little mess. AI's going to make the world a better place, you know. Oh, AI can eat it, Daphne said. I think it's programmed not to do those sorts of things. Well, that's why it'll never take off, she said in a huff. Uneaten butts. A nerve-breaking burst of high-pitched static shot out from these speakers in the studio. I jumped and nearly dropped my coffee. Daphne would have killed me. She slapped the speaker with her palm and the noise stopped. The jolt not only hurt her but also caused the overhead lights to strobe for a few seconds before they stilled. You okay? Yeah, fine. I'd cut this hand off if it would save this place. I don't have a backup plan, Jack. Outside of selling foot pics, I don't either. And to continue this depressing news streak, how do you want to handle today's show? I have a killer suggestion that might just bring out the weirdos tonight. And call-in shows are notorious for crank callers. Crackpots are a dedicated bunch. We keep a blacklist of people who have burned us. Most of the time it's just a bunch of weirdos or some edgelords. Ollie, our fabulous intern, has gotten fantastic at catching dog whistles in the pre-screenings. They had come to us about 2 months ago and instantly became integral to the running of the show. Ollie dreamed of being an on-air talent and was willing to do the grunt work to get there. I was hoping that we would be able to hire them for the show post-school, barring a miracle that wouldn't be happening now. I hate the modern world. Let's let the weirdos have the run of things tonight, I said. You have any red meat for them? Oh boy, do I, Daphne asked. But you sure? We've had some unhinged callers lately. Something in the air, maybe. More unhinged than normal. Oh, way more than normal, boss, Ollie said, walking into the room. One guy swears he's a werewolf sent here by God to rid the world of stray cats and Belgian people. The other night, a caller told me that there are clues on how the world's going to end hidden on the back of cereal boxes, Daphne said. Oh, Frank, Ollie said, their face beaming. Yeah, he's nice, but I think he has a vendetta against Captain Crunch for some reason. Oh, maybe the good captain got promoted over him, I offered. A story as old as time. Captain got to sail out on the SS Guppy and Frank got nothing, Ollie said. And based on our confused glances, they filled us in. The SS Guppy is Captain Crunch's ship. Fun fact, he sails the Milk Sea. His first mate is Sea Dog, and his rival is barefoot pirate Jean Lafoot. How do you know all this? Daphne asked, dumbfounded. Ollie shrugged. ADHD, a love of cereal lore, and unlimited internet access as a kid. I laughed. I needed that. Did you need it because of the whole, you know? Ollie dragged their thumb across their neck. I nodded. Ollie sighed. I heard earlier. Yeah, it sucks a big dong. Yeah, a freakishly huge one, like Ripley's level huge. Feel it in your lungs huge. Ollie and I both gave Daphne a sideways look. She shrugged. Am I wrong here? I glanced up at the clock. It was game time. Screw it. Tonight, we let the freak flags fly. Ron won't be mad, Ollie asked. What's he gonna do, fire us? Hell yeah, Daphne said. Let's get crazy. I have a hot story that'll bring him out too. Hands in, I said, getting everybody to do our pre-show huddle. We're bruised, we're battered, and we're going to be unemployed in a week, but we're good people. Let's do the best show we can tonight. Night moves on 3. 1, 2, 3. Night moves. We all said in unison before splintering off to get started with the broadcast. I took my seat and heard the sultry voice of Bob Seger starting off the show. I placed my cans on, cleared my throat, and leaned into the microphone, waiting for Daphne's signal. After a beat, she pointed at me. It's 11 o'clock in the valley that never sleeps. It's time for Night Moves with Jack Mann. I'm here to guide you down this dark path, past the witching hour and down to the moment the sun's first rays catch your eyes. Hope you had a good day, but good days make for bad radio. So let's hear some gripes, concerns, stories, and scares. Daphne, how are things in your neck of the woods this evening?
Hanging in there.
Best we can do in these uncertain times.
That said, Jack, do I have a wild story to share with you tonight?
Love it. Hit me, I said.
Well, the other day I was browsing Reddit and I found a local legend that I thought might be fun to kick us off.
And this is from Reddit, people, so take it with a grain of salt.
Oh, the saltiest of salts, Daphne said. But have you heard about the South Street Wanderer?
I have not. Ollie? I said, glancing at them.
Ollie shrugged their shoulders.
0 for 2 on us knowing about the South Street Wanderer, Daph.
Well, it's the Valley's own local ghost legend. Apparently, all along South Street, people report seeing a figure lurking in the shadows at all hours of the day. It doesn't hide, but it avoids people. Until it doesn't. Daphne played a shocking music sting to underline her tale. I chuckled.
What happens then?
Promises to warn you about a potential future disaster if you spread the word about the encounter. I don't know how he keeps track though.
So he hides from people unless they agree to be his hype man.
It would seem so.
Why would he want that?
His mixtape ain't gonna sell itself, Jack, Ollie said, an assassin sniping a joke from the mic that we kept in the call screening room. Phones don't answer themselves, Ollie, Daphne said. As she did, the lights in the studio flickered but stayed on. And given our run of luck, the power going out and us not being able to broadcast would be par for the course. Thankfully though, something out there loved us, because the power stayed flowing.
I liked it, Ollie, I said, nodding to the call screen booth.
I have to admit that the Wanderer's mixtape is fire. Not a coincidence considering that people complain about burning sensations after they speak with them.
Wait, what? I asked. He gave them an STD.
Oh, didn't read that, thank God. People report that after hearing their predictions, they sometimes get a burning sensation in their chest. Others say that they get a pain like an electric shock. A few have mentioned getting day-long headaches, oozing rashes, violent nosebleeds, and nightmares.
Well, not ideal, but who wouldn't exchange a migraine for future safety?
And honestly, is there anything worse than a rash? I asked. Well, the other reported effects are bleeding from pores, coma, and death.
I waited a beat.
Still not as bad as itchy skin, right? Daphne laughed. I'd rather itch than bleed from my eyes or, die. A coma, though, sounds nice. Coma dreams have to be wild. A brain free from the waking world might produce some interesting insights.
Maybe how to make radio more lucrative, I said.
Daphne grinned and shot me a look. I was out of craps to give.
The lights above us flickered once more. Again, the power held.
I looked at Daphne, who shrugged. She started jotting something down and held up a pad of paper with her message. Bright Star already not paying the power bill. I stifled a laugh.
So, Valley Dwellers, have any of you interacted with the South Street Wanderer? Know someone who has? Hell, if you are the South Street Wanderer and want to tell your side of the story, we're ready to hear you out.
But don't give us any predictions. My skin is already in awful shape. Can't add bloody pores to the equation. A few seconds later, the phone calls started coming in. Ollie, ready to go forward with the weirdos, was quickly talking to callers and jotting down brief messages for both Daphne and me to see. On the screen it read, Line 1. Joe saw the South Street Wanderer at 7-Eleven. I glanced over at Ollie, who was grinning from ear to ear.
Oh, we've got a live one here.
Joe on line 1 says that he saw the South Street Wanderer getting a Slurpee at 7-Eleven. Did I get that right, Joe? We all waited for Joe to speak up. When noise started coming from the other end of the phone, it was heavy breathing. All of us had been in this game long enough to have a good guess about what this guy was up to. Typically, we hang up. Today we're gonna ride it out. Joe, sounds like you have your hands full. Sorry, came a panicked sounding voice on the other end. I'm out walking my dogs, but yeah, I saw that guy at 7-Eleven like 2 days ago. Well, outside the 7-Eleven, on South Street in Washington. What was he doing? Daphne asked. Hiding on the side of the building. He wasn't getting a big bite hot dog. No, Joe said with a slight chuckle. At first, I thought he was a homeless dude. There's usually a few guys there asking for cigarettes. I mean, they're harmless. The thing that I saw, though, it made my blood run cold. Why? Joe sighed. Something felt off to me. He was in the shadows, but the area directly around him was like darker than the rest of the night. And there was a fog around him, almost like he was standing in a storm cloud. What was he doing? Watching. Not just my actions, but also my thoughts. My memories. He was... Biscuit! No, drop it! Sorry, my dog got into some trash. So it was an eerie vibe, or... I mean, yes, but more than that. I could feel him in my brain. Not physically, but supernaturally. It felt like he was trying to get my attention without speaking. Well, thank God he wasn't in your mind, Jack, Daphne joked. And God has no home there, I said. It's not a joke, Joe said, his voice firm. Especially when I heard a voice that I didn't recognize inside my own brain. Oh, I've had that before. Recently, actually, Daphne said. You sure it wasn't your mind playing tricks on you? No, Joe said definitively. I know it sounds crazy, but he was there. I heard another voice that wasn't mine, and I wasn't even drunk or high. What was that voice saying? I asked as I jotted down a note on a notepad. I flashed it to Daphne. It read, "This going somewhere?" She nodded yes, and I let the man ramble. It was all gibberish at first, like spinning a radio dial, looking for the right station. AM 640, the voice of the valley, I expertly chimed in. Right, Joe said, nervously laughing. Just half words, foreign words, blips and beeps until it found the right sounds and delivered the message. Which was? He asked if I wanted to know the future. Without thinking, I said, sure. Like you said earlier, Jack, why pass up that chance? And great minds think alike. He just kept repeating the same thing. No survivors. Cryptic, I said. I had a flight to catch the next day, and after I heard that, well, I canceled it. Wait, a random voice in your mind made you cancel a plane flight. Aren't you worried about the cost of changing plans? Daphne asked. Well, of course, Joe said. Who can honestly afford that? But like when something weird gives you a sign, I mean, you take it. My life is worth more than a plane ticket, you know what I mean? What happened to the flight? Engine failure. Had to land right after takeoff. Everyone was okay, but I know in my bones that if I had been on that plane, it would have crashed. Ollie started waving their hands to get my attention. I glanced down at the call screen. Joe, hold on. We have another person who swears they saw this thing at the 7-Eleven too. Greg, are you there? Bro, this guy's spitting the truth. This thing's always hanging out there. Really? I said, my internal BS detector going off. You have seen this too. Bro, this thing flippin' loves taquitos. There it was, a crank call. I knew it was coming, we all did. What flavor taquito? Regular. I love you, Emily Sanders. Flip-flop-flu, Greg said before the sound of a phone hanging up. Taquito flavors always trip up the weirdos, I said. "This isn't a joke," Joe spat. "This thing is real. It gets inside you and hacks your brain. Sometimes I'll hear a voice that isn't mine, see things that aren't in the room. It uses me now. It sees and it hears through me. He's probably using me right now to get to you, to your audience." That thought chilled me. My week was already crappy. I didn't need to add becoming a ghost figure's personal camera to the list. I didn't believe Joe, but the man spoke with such conviction that it gave me pause. Looking at Daphne's face, she agreed. Cementing that opinion, she again hit the shocking music sting. I held back my laughter. From inside their call screening room, Ollie did not. Their guffaws didn't come across on the air, but the general feeling did. This guy was full of it. "Let's hope that's not the case," I said. "And does he have any messages for us?" "You don't want me to answer that. People stay away from this thing. Don't look at it, don't engage. It's probably a demon." The phone line went dead. "Oh, that's not at all ominous," Daphne chimed in. "I think that's probably a good time to take a break. You're listening to Night Moves on AM 640. I said, pulling my headphones off as we went to commercial. I glanced over at Daphne. A banger to start out with, Daph. Great job finding the story. Ollie burst into the studio and yelled, "The lines are jammed. Apparently our ghoul is well known and super active in the community. Maybe he's running for office. Sounds like an ideal politician," I said, minus the evil stuff. "Actually, even with the evil stuff, he's an ideal politician," Daphne countered. "South Street Wanderer 2028, Ollie proclaimed. "We could sell t-shirts." And Daphne stood up, and as she did, her whole body shivered. She rubbed her arms, warming herself. "I won't miss the Arctic temps in the studio, that much I promise you. I'm warm, actually. You feel cold." And not to break up the climate crisis in the studio, but Daphne and I were talking pre-show about, maybe sending me out on assignment. "What to wear?" "We're not that far from South Street," Ollie said. "I could go down there, do a man-on-the-street segment, assuming you wouldn't mind handling the phones while I was gone, Daph." "Ollie, no matter what your position is at a radio station, you never stop answering phones," Daphne said with a smile. "I like you heading down there. It shows moxie. Maybe you'll catch something, cause a sensation. Then we can really sell t-shirts." "Save the show," Ollie said hopefully. "I think the only thing that can save the show now is divine intervention," I said, raining on the parade. "So send young Ollie down to the street. What do we have to lose?" "Well, we could lose Ollie," I said. "A small price to pay for fame," Daphne said. Kidding, of course. "I could be radio's own DB Cooper," Ollie said. They turned to me. "I can handle myself, though, trust me. When you're in my situation, you need to know how to throw hands, Jack." I sighed. "I'd rather not send our lovely but eager colleague off to meet with a potential monster," I said. "But if Ollie is okay, I wouldn't say no to it either." Ollie laughed. "Odds are it's a bust. I can't imagine this thing always hangs around the 7-Eleven, right? Maybe the clerk talks about it. Or more likely a drunk or two might have some things to ramble on about." "You said to unleash the weirdos," Daphne said. "Drunks qualify, especially 7-Eleven drunks. You come back if any of them have a message about your future or if you get a headache. Deal?" Ollie's face lit up. They squealed and did a little happy dance. Daphne and I laughed. Ollie was a good kid and would make an amazing radio personality one day. Why not give them a chance to add to their reel? In this economy, in this business, the next gig could be elusive, especially to unknown talent. "We're back in 2, I said, glancing at the clock. "Let's get through some of these calls and see where we are at the top of the hour. If we're flagging, Operation Taquito starts." The next hour was a mixed bag of callers, some genuine, some fake, some off their meds. The topic remained the same though. Despite their demeanor and mental state, anyone who dealt with this thing had similar stories. They heard a voice, received an offer, and either ignored it or took it. If they agreed, the reward was a cryptic message, minor aches and pains, and really horrid vibes. And you say the pain just stopped? Oh yeah, another wanderer victim said. About a week after it happened, I didn't feel anything. Didn't feel like another person was in your head. HE double hockey sticks, no, the caller said with a laugh. That guy's as loony as an outhouse rat. Turns out that tons of people in the valley knew about the Wanderer. This mythological monster was far more well known than our show. A common refrain callers felt the need to add was, "Never heard your show before, but..." That was humbling. I had never heard of the legend before Daff had brought it to me. Apparently I was the only person in the valley who hadn't, because our call volume was the heaviest that it had ever been. Way more than the Nacho Bomb incident of 23, and that garnered local news coverage. Even with that bump, our steady audience was fleeting. Tonight, though, it felt as if the whole town was listening in. I guess I'm just confused about why everybody calls him the Wanderer when he doesn't seem to do much wandering. It's because his Instagram account has all travel pictures, Daphne said. I'll say this, the ghoul knows how to frame a shot. Ollie says somebody on line 3 can explain the Wanderer stuff. Let's hear what a pro has to say. Cindy, line 3, welcome to Night Moves. Our phone screener says that you have some scholarly information about the Wanderer that you would like to share. I didn't want to go on the air, but whatever, Cindy said. You guys need to stop talking about this. The more attention you give it, the stronger it becomes. A classic narcissist. You sure he's not my ex? Daff joked. Okay, this isn't funny. The Wanderer seeks specific individuals that it can use to spread its sickness, and knows when people talk about it. Your show is making a dangerous situation worse. The sickness? Are you talking about headaches and nosebleeds? If things get worse, infinitely worse if it gets too strong, Cindy said. You guys have no idea what you're doing. This thing is ancient and evil. It exists to spread misery. Well, then it absolutely is my ex, Daphne joked. Doesn't it help people avoid catastrophe, though? Can't be all that bad. Well, that's the trick. It tells you something bad will happen, but provides zero specifics. The previous plane crash caller's a good example of this. No survivors. Well, of what? The guy took it to mean his flight, but if I had heard no survivors and didn't have a trip planned, what would that mean to me? It could be anything. But the flight had engine trouble, I said. So the Wanderer was right. No, it wasn't. No one died on that flight. What a monster, that ghoul didn't kill off a plane full of people, Daphne said. Her tone was jokey, but her face wasn't. Daff had pretzeled her body and was leaning close to the mic. Something about this caller was getting under her skin, like this was a personal attack. Okay, I'll grant you that the engine trouble was an amazing coincidence, but the message wasn't uniquely prophetic because nothing ultimately happened. The caller was safe, the plane was safe. Because the Wanderer told him it would be. Jack, am I crazy? Cindy here doesn't seem to be saying much of anything. To a true believer like yourself, I can see that being the case. That was the splinter under the fingernail for Daff. She sighed, laughed, and attacked. True believer? I just read about this the other day, Daphne said. I'm just not willing to dismiss it because one rando crazy has a theory. Whoa, I said. All right, let's relax. I'm used to true believers getting upset. It's okay, Cindy said. It looked like Daphne was ready to pounce. I balled up a piece of paper and I threw it at her. It bounced off her console and broke her concentration. I wagged my finger at her and she leaned back in her chair, her claws retracted.
Cindy, what were you saying?
This isn't a theory, it's a scientific fact. Think about it like this. Let's say something incredible happens to you, good or bad, but you don't understand why it happened. Lacking concrete information, our brain fills in the information gaps with belief. It's how conspiracy theories bloom. You saying that all our callers are conspiracy theorists? Daphne asked.
Or that the world isn't flat, I countered.
And we can all fall under the sway of good stories, Cindy said, ignoring my joke. That caller believes that had he gone on that plane, it would have crashed. How does he know that? He doesn't. But it's an emotional truth, and that's enough for some of us. Actual proof requires facts. Belief requires only hope, and hope is nothing more than positive thoughts.
What does the Wanderer bother with that at all? I asked.
It lies to gain your trust. That's a seed planted in your mind. Some people won't water the seed so it never germinates, but others will. They'll tell people about this incredible thing that happened to them. Each conversation gives the wanderer strength, more of a hold on the person's mind. By the time the seed blossoms, the victim's ready to be used for the next stage. Cindy said, Jack, it's called the Wanderer because its evil wanders to every mind that's open to its message. So our show is an evil super spreader event, Daphne asked. What happens when it gets strong? What's the Wanderer's purpose? Chaos, death, destruction. It uses its victims. Some will spread their gospels, some will enact their violence. Some will stand aside as it happens. Each role plays a part in their evil plans. I didn't realize we had such a large contingent of evil listeners, Daphne said. Oh, we're all capable of evil. You asked about its purpose. Best I can tell is that the Wanderer exists to end us all. It infects people and allows them to act on their worst impulses.
Cindy's words hung there for longer than I would normally allow. What started as a fun, goofy topic had moved into a horrifying place. We were all processing this strange left turn into genuine concern. I had a bunch of other questions, but the next sound that I heard was a dial tone. Daphne hung up on Cindy.
A new age woo-woo kook pranking us, probably surrounded by crystals. They're worse than wine moms.
Well, Cindy, I appreciated the insight.
I'm gonna run right out and buy one of her crystals. Ward off bad juju.
Maybe I'll get one for the studio. Keep the peace, I said.
Daphne's right eyebrow raised and she narrowed her eyes at me. I laughed.
Saturn is in retrograde, the moon is waxing gibbous, and you're listening to Night Moves on AM 640. Back in.
The door to the studio slammed open. Daphne and I both turned to see a familiar face standing there. Manny. The bloody tissue was still wadded up in his nose. His eyes looked glazed. When he moved, he looked like a puppet on marionette strings.
Manny, what the hell?
Keep going,
he said as he smiled widely, too wide, Joker level wide.
Keep talking.
It sounded like his voice, but it wasn't his voice. It was flat, monotone, lifeless. His whole body turned toward Daphne. She clutched a pair of scissors.
Keep going,
he coughed. The hacking unleashed 2 gushing streams of blood from his nostrils. Daphne screamed. I took us to commercial and rushed over to Manny, but something in her scream must have snapped Manny out of his trance. His whole body relaxed until he saw the blood streaming from his nose. He pinched the bridge and tilted his head back to staunch the flow.
Oh, Jesus Christ and his disciples, Manny said. Not this again.
Manny, what the hell? Panic crossed his face.
How did I get here, dog? He said, confused. Why am I bleeding so much?
The door kicked open again to reveal a pissed-off Ron. His face was red with rage, but his eyes showed fear. As soon as he saw Manny, he grabbed him by the shirt and started shaking him. Manny screamed and pushed Ron back. Before it could come to blows, I slid in between them and broke them up. "Chill, chill," I yelled. They finally relaxed after exchanging a few choice words. I put my hand on Manny's shoulder and looked him dead in the eyes. "What's going on?" "I don't know, bro. Last thing I remember was driving to my next stop, listening to the show, and then you were here talking to me." "He's gotta go," Ron said. "Never come back here. You hear me, boy?" "Who the hell are you calling boy, old man?" "Enough," Daphne screamed. "Ron, we've got it handled. Go back to the office and have another smoke or 10. Ron looked at me and I nodded. The intrusion was unexpected, but I had a handle on it. He straightened out his shirt, ran his hand through his slick, thinning hair and nodded to us all. He gave Manny the finger and walked out. "Man, screw that fool." "You feeling okay?" I asked. "You kind of freaked everybody out." "And to be real with you, not really. I think I'm going to go home sick. I'm sorry, dog. I didn't mean to break up the party. Show's been fired tonight, though." He turned to Daphne. "Sorry, Daph. I didn't mean nothing by it. Honest." "I feel better, Manny," Daphne said. She didn't drop the scissors. Once the studio door shut, I expected the vibe to shift, but it didn't. And doom hung in the air. Even when Ali entered from the call screening room, everything still felt heavy. I glanced up at the clock and saw that we had 30 seconds to air. "Maybe we should change topics," I suggested. "No way," Daphne said. "We're onto something big here, let's see it through." "I agree," Ali said. "This is the highest call volume that we've had the entire time that I've been here. If I count as part of the show, I say stay on topic." "You absolutely count," I said. "But are you guys sure about this?" "Yes," Daphne said. "We're all gonna need clips from this for our reels. Take Joan on line 3. She says she wants to refute Cindy." "I knew that lady was trash," Daphne said. The music for the show started and we all settled back into our roles. It felt strange after such a dramatic interruption that we would return to work as if nothing had happened. Calls needed to be answered. Commercials need to be played. Best not to worry about the crumbling world around you. It's a survival instinct buried in our animal brains. Act like nothing bothers you and you can become king of the jungle. Before we left, we had a little brouhaha in here. I dare say we were edging towards a Donnybrook, and Daphne said, her voice steady. "No need to panic, people. It was a simple accident. A vendor took a wrong turn into the studio. Considering the topic, it gave us all a good scare, but I'm good. Ali, you good?" Ali is giving a thumbs up. "Daph, you good?" "As good as I was pre-show," she said with a wink. "Well then we're golden. Who's the next victim here?" "Joan on line 3 says that caller Cindy was full of it," Daphne said. "Joan, you're live with night moves. Why was Cindy full of crap?" Silence. Sometimes callers get distracted while waiting for their turn to speak and they miss their cue. It's not uncommon. Worse, sometimes we connect with people who are just waiting to get on air and unleash their free hand on themselves. Panting like an overheated dog, getting off on bringing the world in on their sick idea of a good time. This wasn't any of those things. Static through the speaker, like a record needle stuck in the run-out groove. I cleared my throat and asked for Joan again. Nothing. Not even a hint of somebody being on the other line. I looked over at Daphne, who shrugged. "Joan, you still with us?" Finally, through the static, we heard mumbling. No words, but there was the cadence of human speech. I turned up the volume in my headphones to listen closely.
I leaned in, pressed my headphones against my ears, and focused like I was on top of Bunker Hill, waiting for the whites of my enemy's eyes to appear. My musket at the ready. "Ooh, I heard something," Daphne said. "Joan, can you repeat that?" More crackling and snapping. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought that Joan had the phone close to her bowl of cereal. Finally, a single word broke containment and found my ears. "Fate?" I asked. "Did you say fate?" "Fate? I heard wait," Daphne said. Instead of a clarification, the noticeably not female voice croaked out a garbled string of noises that gave me the impression of an incantation. "I don't think this is Joan," I said. "I don't think it's a person," Daphne said. "I'm dumping her, or whatever she is." Daphne went to hang up the call when a burst of static and a high-pitched squeal blasted onto the air from the other end of the line. Joan must have seen the whites of my eyes first and fired. The shot hit me. I tipped back in my chair, threw off my headphones, and covered my ears in pain. I had forgotten to turn the volume back down. The noise made my eardrums go all neo-part. The sonic attack left us in a stunned silence. Dead air is the worst thing that you can have on the radio. After a beat, I turned down my volume, put my headphones back on, and cleared my throat. I could still hear the ringing as I spoke. "Well, Joan made some interesting points there. Sorry to all your car speakers and/or eardrums out there." "What?" Daphne joked, cupping her hand to her ear. A few warning lights on my console started blinking. Never a good sign. I couldn't hear my voice in my headphones. Damage had been done. I had been silenced. I motioned to Daph, but she was already on it. She took control. "Oh, folks, we're having some technical difficulties here. Hate to do this, but we need to take another break. Forgive us. Please enjoy this fun Jiffy Lube commercial. This is Night Moves on AM 640. "You're a natural. Ever given thought to a career in radio?" I said, hoping to break the tension. "I heard it was a dying industry," Daphne said. "What's up with the board?" "How if I know? You want to take a look?" "You've got to learn about some of this at some point, Jack," she said, walking over to do some quick diagnosis. Ollie walked into the studio. "Anyone else have a headache and a nosebleed?" "Hilarious," I said. "If the main board is fried, you can use mine," Ollie said. "Where are you gonna be?" I asked, confused. Ollie and Daphne looked at each other like schemers cutting me out of their plot. Daphne looked back at me. "I think it's time for Operation Taquito." And being out on the streets right now with as weird as things have been tonight, it seems unwise. "Oh, we just had somebody burst into the studio," Ollie said. "The streets might be safer." Ollie's an adult. If she says she can handle it, I say we go for it. Ollie is an adult and they are fine with it, Ollie said, using third person to mitigate Daphne's mix-up. "Jack, what's the worst that can happen?" Well, that's what the Secret Service said to President Kennedy before he agreed to take the roof off his car. The door to the studio opened. Ron was back. He looked more relaxed now that he wasn't sparring with the vendor. Still, we all stayed quiet. Ron could sense the tension. Wounds were fresh. Blood still stained our bandages. I wanted to say sorry for overreacting earlier. Hey, it happens, I said, finally breaking our silence. Board okay? I'm not sure we have a backup plan if it's not. Ron nodded and sighed. Bright Star will never fix it. I speak for everyone when I say I don't give a crap about Bright Star's future struggles, Daphne said, rubbing her temples. She wasn't handling the news well. It was physically getting to her. I assumed she'd follow her zinger up with a quick apology, but the longer the second hand turned on the clock, the more I realized it wasn't coming. And we were all standing there like a house on the side of the road until Ron sighed and nodded. I wish I could change things, but the good Lord didn't put me in the position to change much except clothes and my sinning ways. Did you need something, Ron? I said, trying to move us past the unpleasantness. To apologize and compliment you all on the show. People are into it. I know. He paused. I know things are hard now, but you three have a good thing going here. What the company is doing to all you is horrible, Daphne said. Unfair, Ollie added. Wrong, Ron said. I didn't join the radio business to listen to fake DJs play the same 20 songs on a loop. I don't have much in this world, but I do have some connections. If you want me to pass those along, I can. So we go work there until those corporate behemoths decide to cut costs too, Daphne spat. Her anger was genuine but misplaced. We were drowning and she was turning her nose up at a man throwing us a life vest. I cut her off at the knees. I speak for all of us when I say that we would appreciate that, Ron. Thank you. He nodded and swirled his finger in the air. What's the next step here? I moved to Daph's console. She moves to Ollie's. I moved to the 7-Eleven, Ollie said, and do a man on the street piece. Be careful out there. Weirdos don't just call into radio shows, Ollie. They also work the streets. Ron said, sounding very much like a parent. I guess that makes us all the same then, I said, trying to break the tension. It worked. Even Daphne smiled. Ron bid us an adieu and headed back to his office. I glanced over at Ollie. He's right though, first sign of trouble and book it back to the studio, okay? No job was worth dying for, especially one that already has an expiration date. And get the story though, Daphne said. I shot her a look. Ollie nodded and set out to do their first big radio piece. Memories of my first chance flooded back to my mind. I went to a minor league baseball game to race the mascot. Tubby Tuna, the mascot in question, smoked me. And for the rest of my time at the station, the crew called me Fish Boy. I didn't love it, but being part of a creative team will make you accept it. What would Ollie's Fish Boy moment be? Ollie's safe, right? I asked. Probably, I mean, if something bad happens, think of the ratings bump. Not funny, I said. Just sending somebody out in the middle of the night to find a monster. It seems wrong, right? Nah, Daphne said with a shrug. She, or they rather, has mentioned taking Taekwondo classes. No better test of your martial arts skills than muggers and weirdos during the witching hour. Easy on the venomous they, huh? All these good people. No, it's nothing personal, just not used to it is all. Neither was I at first, but the world changes, I said, sitting at my new console. Adjust or die. And Daphne mimicked my concerns and headed for Ollie's station. Or we bring back the good old days. Isn't that why we're still in radio and not podcasting? I had more to say, but time worked against me. I welcomed the audience back and informed them that our intern was on their way to the 7-Eleven to question the South Street Wanderer. People had opinions about that. Oh my god, why? Hell yeah, brother, get to the source. Oh, this is gonna end horribly. Call Ollie back. Ollie sounds hot. Daphne too, also Jack. I need a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Or a friend. What if you get there and find out it's nothing but a crazy bomb? The government is controlling the Wanderer. The Wanderer isn't real. If Ollie dies, can I take their job? We ran through the calls one by one. We let these people bleed into their phones in 3 to 5 minute chunks and tried to find entertainment in their ramblings. This feeling of improvised jazz is why I love call-in shows. Keeps you sharp, makes you think on your feet. If you're good when the bullets fly, nothing can take you down. After 20 minutes, we had established a good connection with Ollie. They had gotten to the 7-Eleven unharmed.
and Daphne broke into a lovely conversation that I was having with a man who swore that after seeing the Wanderer whose food started talking to him. I was fine with the interruption. Jack, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Ollie, are you there? There was some static before we heard Ollie's pitch-perfect radio voice cut through the noise. Hi, Daph. Yes, I am currently standing outside the South Street 7-Eleven. Describe the scene for us there, Ollie, I said. Any ghouls afoot? Ollie chuckled. Ghoul-free as of now, but there are more people here than I would have thought at this hour. Any fine, upstanding citizens among them? Daphne asked. Maybe. The clerk seems cool. There's a guy buying cigarettes and, jerky. 3 in the morning, dude, really? What are the vibes at the scene? Pretty immaculate thus far. There are a few, unhoused dudes chilling. Just say homeless, Ollie, Daphne said with a sigh. Why be PC about burns? I shot Daphne a look. Ollie, will they speak to you? I can. Excuse me. Yes, you. Hi, hey, we're live on the radio. You have a few minutes to talk. Be careful, Daphne said. They may have weapons. One is holding a lotto scratcher. I think I'm safe, Ollie said. Oh, okay, hi sir. My name is Ollie. What's yours? An all too excited voice shone through the line. Robert, but you can call me Sauce. Sauce? Ollie asked, her voice lilting. 'Cause I'm the boss. Sauce, have you ever heard of the South Street Wanderer? Nah, I ain't never seen him. He work at the 7-Eleven. Oh, kind of, yeah, it's a local urban legend. I thought I was the only local urban legend around here. Haha, hey Willie, you hear what I just said? Sauce, ever seen anything weird down here? Ollie said, trying to wrangle control of the interview back. I mean, it's the streets. You always see weird Wait, we really on the radio? We are. Night Moves on AM 640. A great plug, I said. Hell yeah, Jack something, right? The same, Ollie said. He's from the Nantucket somethings. Really huge deal with the sailing sector. Daphne laughed. Ollie was good and quick on their feet. An asset to what could be one of the biggest shows in the valley if Brightstar still believed in us. The paranormal stuff was paying off tonight. We could shift gears permanently. I let my mind wander to Art Bell. Coast to Coast started as a nightly Vegas radio show and became a national phenomenon. Why not us? Willie, you ever heard of the Wanderer? Sauce yelled out. Who's Willie, Ollie? I asked. Oh, he's another guy, they said. Willie, we're on the radio, okay? Hey there to all the people in radio land, Willie said. His voice was melodic. They want to know if you ever heard of the South Street Wanderer or something. It's an urban legend, a figure in the dark predicts your future but gives you nightmares. Ain't that the government? Sauce said, cackling. Willie's tone was more serious. Actually, didn't Chuck say he saw something like that the other day? Man, Chuck ain't acting right these days. Wait, you said you saw your friend Chuck and he saw the Wanderer and now he's acting off. Well, Chuck's been off since he lost his job, Willie said. And his marbles, Sauce added. Yeah, yep, those too. But he was saying the other day that he had met some guy in the alley. Said it just appeared like a fog. Scared him half to death. Said it was mumbling something, but he couldn't hear it all. Chuck has a ringing in his ear, you know. I didn't, but good to know, Ollie ad-libbed. What did the thing say to him? Chuck said he heard the man say overdose and that was enough to scare him. Chuck ain't got no problems, so to speak, but he does mess with that junk from time to time. Time to time, that boy's higher than the president's plane during the end of the world, man. Gone. Not always, Willie said. His voice softened. Chuck told me that guy scared him off the junk. Ain't touched it since that day. But he's had a hard time sleeping and eating.
Every time I run into him, he's got fresh cuts on his arms and legs. Sounds like a druggie, Daphne said. You sure that he's not on drugs now? Ollie asked, cleaning up Daphne's comment. He says he ain't, I believe him. Says that thing's stalking him, like the Grim Reaper or something. Do you know where Chuck is now? Can we speak to him? Ollie from AM 640, screamed a voice from across the lot. Is that you? Your fame precedes you, I said. Not bad for a lowly intern, Daphne said. An unpaid intern at that, Ollie said before turning their attention to the person screaming at them. Have you seen the Wanderer? Oh, it's in my pants. Epic burn, the man yelled. Jack, I'm being told the Wanderer is in this man's pants. If that's not a scary thought, I don't know what is. Hey man, don't be rude, Sauce yelled. They're talking on the radio about... Oh, what the hell? Ollie said, the jokey tone falling away from their voice. What's going on? I asked. The power went out. The electric company always works at the most inconvenient times, Daphne said. No, it's on everywhere else. Only the 7-Eleven and these surrounding lights are out. I'm in the dark, literally and figuratively. What the hell's going on? Sauce yelled. What is that there by the alley? Willie yelled. Can you see anything, Ollie? I asked. My heart rate ticked up. I leaned closer to the mic and I felt my palms get moist. Was this thing actually manifesting live on the air? The viral potential of this moment would be off the charts. It could save the show. Talk to me here. Fill us in. We're still live. Jack, there's something or someone near the alley, but I can't be sure what it is. Well, that's a dumpster, Sauce said. Are you guys hearing that? Ollie asked. Is that getting picked up by the mic? I listened to the air and heard a little beyond the gaggle of folks that had surrounded Ollie. What are we listening for? Someone talking in a really low tone. Softly, they're saying, explosion, Willie said. I heard the word explosion. Nah, Sauce said. It's saying tribe. Which is it? Daphne asked. And because we can't hear anything but a few homeless guys bumping gums. Silence until Ollie gasped in surprise. Willie, why are your eyes bleeding? The bottom fell out from under me. The punch hit me square in the gut. Ripples of pain and unease rapidly spread through my body. Something was wrong, really wrong. Before I could respond, Ollie yelped again. Jesus, Sauce, your ear. Man, what the hell else is gonna go wrong for old Sauce? I'm supposed to be the boss. Ollie, are you okay? We heard footfalls of somebody running toward the group. My gut tensed up. Yo, hey Ollie, I was the guy yelling about pants earlier. I'm Bobby, by the way. Okay, Ollie said. There's someone in the alley. I saw it as the lights went out. I didn't want to believe it, but I swear there's something there. Oh hell, Sauce said. Who the heck's in the alley? The Wanderer, Willie whispered. Chuck was right. I'll go with you if you want to go check it out, Bobby said, his voice so wound up that you would mistake it for a thread on a bobbin. Guys, should I go? Yes, Daphne spat out. That's the whole reason you're down there. Sauce, Willie, you guys are willing to go into the alley as well? I was just coming up here to get some water, man, and now my ears are bleeding and you're asking me to chase a demon with a stranger, Sauce said. Willie, you hearing this nonsense? The hell is going on in the world, man? Evil, Willie said. It's spreading. Well, that ain't gonna make me want to go in the alley, brother. That much I can promise. Hey, we gotta stop it. Look what it did to Chuck. Drugs did that to Chuck, and I already stay away from that mess. I like my life, well, parts of it anyway. I don't think chasing monsters is gonna be a new hobby I pick up tonight or any night. You owe me for what happened on Santa Paula Place 2 months ago. Remember? The ping-pong nature of the conversation had a musical cadence, less a talk between people and more of a symphony of raw human emotion. It made great radio. If I were on the edge of my seat, I knew the rest of our listeners were as well. "Willie, why you gotta bring that shit up, man?" Saw said with a sigh. "Language," and Daphne said. "We had to dump that." "Sorry," Ollie said. "Can't control the world around me." "Ollie, maybe you should come back. I don't know if I trust well any of this," I said. "The show isn't worth going into a dark alley with 3 strange men." "Jack, I'm okay, I promise. Plus, think of the press." "There's my girl," Daphne said. Ollie sighed, so to speak. And Daphne rolled her eyes at me. "And go find this monster, huh?" "If Willie goes and gives me $5, I'll go too," Saw said. "It's only fair." "So we gonna do this or what?" Bobby asked. "I'll record it on my phone in case we see anything." "We're ready, and if I know Daph and Jack, they're ready too." "Fill us in on what you see," Daphne said. "Just like old-time news radio. Think of the Hindenburg crash, Ollie. It made that guy's entire career." "Oh, the humanity," Ollie mimicked. I laughed. I didn't want to. My mind was racing with the 9 million horrible things that could happen in this moment. But Ollie jarred me out of it. Whatever came next for night moves, Ollie would definitely have to be a part of it. And this clinched it. The lights in the studio flickered. I watched as the green volume level lights quickly faded before lighting back up to full strength. I shot a look over to Daphne, who checked a few settings before giving me the thumbs up. We were still on the air. "Ollie, what are you feeling right?" The rest of the sentence never made it to air. The power dipped again. This time it stayed off for a few seconds before booting back on. Daphne once again gave everything a once-over and shrugged. "Ollie, can you hear me?" I said. "We're having some power issues in the studio." "No way," Ollie screamed. "The lights in the alley are flickering too. It's pulsing like a strobe. It feels like a rave." "The hell it does. I'm about to Carl Lewis my butt back home," Saul said. "It knows we're coming." "Can you see the Wanderer?" "No, but the alley is noticeably colder. Like 20 degrees or so." "It smells bad too," Bobby said. "Like worse than a normal alley." "It's death," Willie said. "Once you smell it, you never forget it." Before I could dive deeper, the door to the studio swung open and Ron came rushing in. His face looked chalky and drained of all color. He clearly had something to say but didn't want to interrupt the show. He jotted something down in his chicken scratch handwriting and held it up for us to read. "Don't let Ollie go down there." "What?" I said out loud. I didn't mean to, but the words flowed out of me like a leak in a hose. "Why?" "Are you having a side conversation?" Daphne said. Ron turned to her and showed her his warning. She looked at me and back to Ron. "What are you talking about?" "If Ollie gets hurt, we can get into major legal trouble," Ron said, breaking in. "Ollie, stay away from the alley." "Trouble from whom?" Ollie agreed to go into the alley. If anything happens, well, she knew the score. "They," I corrected. "They," Daphne said. "Besides, there isn't going to be a station to sue anyway. We're fighting for window seats as the plane is about to slam into the towers. Might as well get good content for our troubles." "Cut the feed," Ron said, turning to me. "Cut the feed now, Jack." "Why are you freaking out?" I asked. "I saw it," he said finally. "The Wanderer, just now in my office." The air left the room. I even heard Ollie and her group stop walking. My eyes caught the blaring yellow lights from the jam-packed phone lines. I locked eyes with Ron. He was serious. Tears were welling up. "Is this a joke?" Daphne said, finally breaking the silence. "No," Ron whispered. "It's said that if Ollie goes into the alley..." His voice caught. He couldn't complete the sentence.
But you didn't have to be Nostradamus to see where this was going. Ollie was in mortal danger. "Ollie, did you hear that?" I asked. "Did Ron say you saw the thing in his office at the station?" "Yes, it was here," Ron yelled. "Get out now." "Wait," Daphne said, standing. "You feel that?" "Feel what?" "An electric shock. It's rippling up my arm." "It said it would start like that," Ron said, his voice manic. "Get out of there now. Something bad is going to happen to all." His voice stopped. His body went rigid. Ron blinked and a tear rolled down his face, or what I thought was a tear. But as he smeared the liquid across his cheek, it became glaringly obvious what was falling from his eyes. Blood. "Ron," I drawled, "are you okay?" He touched his face and looked at his blood-stained fingers. "My God, it's just like he said." "Guys, something's happening here," Ollie said. "I can't see anything and the electrical charge is spreading. It feels like a spark when you touch a doorknob, but it's traveling across my entire body. What in the world?" "Oh, hell no," Sauce yelled. "I'm out of here." "Same," Bobby said, his courage shrinking in the moment. A pair of footsteps followed their declarations. Someone down there had some sense. "Chuck said it started like, gah, what's happening to me?" Willie said, pain lacing his voice. "Oh my God, Willie, what?" It's all Ollie got out, until they screamed. "Ollie," I yelled, embracing the full-on dread. Silence. "Ollie?" And Daphne said, a panic finally creeping into her voice. "Come on, Ollie, if this is a joke, it's a horrible one. Answer me." No response. Ollie's mic feed was still running. Over the speakers, we heard slowly approaching footsteps. At first, I thought it was Ollie returning to grab the mic. As the voice started speaking, it ruined those dreams. "Your end has arrived." The feed cut after that. "It's beginning," Ron whispered before his eyes rolled back into his head and he dropped to the ground. I jumped up and ran to him. Watching house reruns was the extent of my medical training. I didn't think that I could help much, but I still tried. To no one's surprise, it didn't work. Daphne joined me, leaned over Ron and placed her fingers on his neck. "He's got a pulse, and you can see his chest moving, so he's breathing. Call an ambulance." "What about Ollie?" I asked, my eyes filling with tears. A splotch of red appeared on my arm, and then another and another. I followed the trail of drops until I saw its place of origin, Daphne's nose. What started as a trickle had become a steady flow. "Dav," I said, rubbing my nose. "Oh crap," she said. No. They said it wouldn't happen to me." "Wouldn't happen to you? What are you talking about?" You what?" I spat. Anger surged in my body. "What's going on?" "I didn't just look up the Wanderer. I summoned it." My brain disassociated. I could feel tiny, fizzy bubbles bursting in my mind. My vision narrowed. A weight in my gut kept me on the ground. It took everything in me not to black out. And Daphne and I locked eyes. I didn't need to ask the obvious question. "We had worked so hard to build this show, this audience. I couldn't just let that die because an AI huckster had swayed some bright star bean counter. I thought the only thing that could save us would be a news story that went viral. If the wider world knew about us, it'd be harder to get chopped. I mean, who doesn't love a ghost story?" I glanced up. We were still broadcasting. Daphne was confessing to the entire valley, the entire world. She continued. "I heard about the Wanderer and well, the more I read about it, the more it seemed like I should use that as a basis. But then I met someone who told me where I could find the creature and speak to it. It took everything in my power to look over at her. I felt my hands ball up on the carpet, not because I wanted to hit her. I was trying to find something to hold on to. As insane as the night was going, I was afraid that I would start floating away. Nothing was outside the realm of possibility now. What did you do? I asked for help. It said it would require a sacrifice. I told it that I had a person in mind and we agreed. But it lied, Jack, it lied to me. She softly started sobbing. It clicked. Ollie? You meant Ollie, didn't you? And Daphne looked over. Her eyes were ringed in bloody tears. She looked like she was wearing a red Lone Ranger mask, trying to hide her true self from the world, from me, but I saw her clearly now. Initially, yes, I love Ollie, but they weren't part of the team, not really. When I heard the homeless guys down there, well, I thought they'd work better as a sacrifice instead. I mean, who would miss them? I felt a flutter in my chest. What happens now? We go viral, Daphne said. A rivulet of blood snaked out of her nostril. She wiped at it, but the flow gained strength. Crap, she said, trying to staunch the bleeding. We're gonna die, aren't we? Everyone who heard its voice. The lights flickered in the room until they went off. We weren't in total darkness, though. Incredibly, the red on-air sign glowed above us, a reminder of my childhood wish to be a radio star. Now the sign was nothing but a beacon of doom. Night moves had cursed the valley, maybe the entire world once this thing spreads online. When the studio lights came back on, Ron and Daphne were gone. A dark figure stood in the room now. Black clouds billowed at its feet. The smell of death was heavy in the air. The South Street Wanderer had arrived. I didn't look up. If I ignored it, it would go away. Those were the rules, right? Or was it too strong now? Did those rules no longer matter? Maybe I could still reverse everything. Reject its message. Give myself time to solve this. Once I figured out how to combat it, I could spread the message to everyone. Use the radio to save us all from whatever evil was coming next. A splotch of red splashed onto my hand. Crap. A spark crackled at the base of my skull. A wave of electricity rolled over my entire body like water streaming from a dam. The Wanderer mumbled something, but my heart thumped in my ears, and darkness rushed in from the edges of my vision. I shut my eyes. The last sound that I heard was the crack of my skull hitting the floor as I collapsed on the ground. I hear them ringing all the time now, even in my sleep. I see the light when I close my eyes, the wretched green glow of impossible realms. I don't know if it's real or if it's just in my head, but what I do know is that I'm in danger. Sorry, my name's Ben, and in case something happens, I need to write this all down. I need to write what I saw, or at least think I saw. Whether you believe me or not is up to you. I know what I'm about to describe might sound crazy. I would have said that it was impossible just a while ago. I should have just walked away when I saw the red flags. I should have listened to my gut. Sometimes the job isn't worth it, regardless of the pay. Now I fear whatever I saw last night is coming for me at this very moment. I should have left the first time that I heard the bells ring. It all started 2 weeks ago. I had lost my job at what was supposed to be the last reliable employer in town, and I was looking for work. It had already been 2 months at that point since the factory had closed, and the job that I had worked at since getting out of high school had vanished. For the first time in years, I was unemployed and my savings evaporated quickly. I wasn't exactly bad with money, but I had no family, no responsibility, and I spent what I had on what I wanted. My situation was getting dire, and the town that I lived in hardly had any part-time minimum wage jobs to search through. When I was looking for places that were hiring online, I noticed that I had received a strange email. I almost deleted it out of habit, but I noticed it was a work advertisement. I decided to look at it, and my interest piqued. It read, "Now hiring security personnel for night shift at Aurora Ridge Cemetery. Call for more details. No previous security experience required." There is an odd 800 number instead of a local area code listed below the message. I was glad to see a potential job prospect had come to me. I never thought to look for security jobs, and definitely not at a place like a cemetery. I was reluctant at first, not because I was scared of cemeteries, but because it sounded kind of weird. I wondered why a cemetery would have a night watchman at all. I figured most places would have security systems that took care of that. Despite my concern, I decided to call the number listed. The line rang for a minute before going to a voicemail, asking me to leave my information. I was just interested enough to comply, but I almost wrote it off after that, figuring they wouldn't get back to me. To my surprise, in less than 10 minutes, I received a call back. The man on the phone had an odd inflection in his voice, like an accent slightly out of time. He was polite though and sounded happy that somebody had contacted him about the offer. I had barely said hello and given my name before he enthusiastically cut me off and went into a pitch on the job.
Oh, thank you for the call. My name is Victor Penny, and I'm so glad you're interested in working with us at Aurora Ridge. I would like to arrange a short meeting and introductory tour if you're still interested.
I was thrilled and eagerly responded, "Yes, thank you, Mr. Penny. I would love to. When can we meet?"
Well, tonight at 9:30 would work for me if that works for you.
I paused for a moment, surprised that it would be an interview the same night that I had inquired and be so late in the evening. I didn't second guess it though, and I agreed, and Mr. Penny sounded delighted as I had said yes, almost like I was doing him a favor.
Oh, fantastic. Looking forward to seeing you here. Always happy to work with a new soul. Take care and see you then.
He hung up and I ended the call as well. Despite how odd the arrangement was, I was just happy that I might have a paycheck again. I set out at 9 p.m., leaving a bit of time to get there early, since Aurora Ridge was only a 10-minute drive from my apartment. I was surprised that I hadn't seen the place before. It seemed to be nestled out of the way, off the main road leading into town. When I first arrived, I had to double-check that I was at the right place. I kept driving a little further on a dirt road and practically into the forest. When I came upon the main gate, I was relieved. A tall iron fence across the clearing, and I read the sign by the main gate and I knew that I was there. It read, "Welcome to Aurora Ridge Cemetery, where the light of lives rests eternal." The gate was closed, and when I stepped out of my car, I was dismayed when I saw that it was locked as well. I guessed I would just have to wait until Mr. Penny was there to let me in. I looked around the grounds and saw that there were hardly any gravestones, like this lot was new and barely anybody had been interned yet. The fading sunlight cast an orange glow over the sprawling and somewhat barren cemetery, and I was impressed by the beautiful sight of the place, if not unnerved by its morbid nature. I had to admit, the darkening skies did not help. I waited for a while, and when I checked my phone, I saw that it was 9:40. I was getting worried that I had been tricked and that nobody would show up. As I nervously glanced around the area, the light faded even further and twilight glowed in the distance. Something about it was odd and it made me do a double take. I thought that I saw a strange light in the sky. It looked like it was coming from somewhere on the grounds, but further inside of the cemetery. The odd thing was that the light was not in any shade of twilight that I had ever seen.
It was a sort of green like one might see in the northern lights. It stood out amongst the other colors, and the more that I stared at the shifting pattern in the sky, the more unnatural the green light seemed to be. It lingered when the other colors faded away into the darkness of the night, like it had some strange phosphorescence. The odd viewing of the lights was interrupted when I heard a car approaching. I saw a large hearse driving down the path. It pulled up slowly and I could hear the pained grinding of the ancient vehicle, and it lurched to a halt behind my own car. A man stepped out. He was very tall and wore a jet black suit. Oddly, he also wore a pair of sunglasses that looked glaringly out of place in the dark night. He straightened his jacket and patted down his suit, and then he slid a hand back over his thin gray hair. He smiled when he saw me and walked over with a distinct, almost theatrical stride. He unlocked the gate, and as it swung open loudly, he sauntered over to introduce himself. "Oh, hello. Ben, was it? Pleased to meet you, Victor Penny. I'm the proprietor of this fine resting place. I trust you found the place all right." I shook his outstretched hand and he gripped me disturbingly tightly. He kept smiling and shaking until I let go and responded, "Yes, thank you, sir. Though I was afraid you might not be coming." Mr. Penny looked apologetic. "Oh, yes, I know. So sorry for the inconvenience. I had to make a last-minute drop-off and I was delayed, though I should give more credence to the living. After all, the dead can wait." He chuckled at his own words, like an inside joke. He laughed it off and shrugged. "Well then, shall we?" He gestured toward the gate and unlocked it with a large brass key. The gate swung open loudly, and the sound, coupled with the hellish visual of the fading light, made me feel like I was entering a dream. I shook off the impression and I followed. Mr. Penny had insisted that we walk, promising that the site wasn't too far. Though as we moved, I was struck by just how empty the place seemed to be. Only about a dozen gravestones lay scattered throughout the acres of grounds in all directions. As if reading my mind, Mr. Penny spoke as we walked. "You might notice the scarcity of graves here. Though our business is new, the lot is ancient. We have more residents here than it appears, but age, degradation, and a rather distressing incident have destroyed many of the plots and stones. We still keep the grounds but leave the others' resting places unmarked and undisturbed." I thought I saw that odd green light in the distance again before Mr. Penny pointed to a small building that we were moving past. "That is the groundkeeper's building. Old Horace tends the grounds in the day. You might see him on the way out on some nights, but he does not normally stay after dark." I nodded my head and we moved up the gentle hill towards a larger building in the distance. The green glow was gone and I started to wonder if I had really seen it at all. Mr. Penny spoke up again and pointed to the building. "Here we are. Please follow me if you would. The station is here and we'll discuss the job further, but the site that really matters is just a short way further up the hill. We'll get to that and more, assuming you agree to take the position." He smiled awkwardly and I was confused by the comment. I thought I was guarding the entire cemetery. Was there another site? The security station came into clearer view as we moved closer, and I saw that it had a strange, almost tower-like lookout that jutted out of the roof, and giving it the impression of a lighthouse looking out over a vast ocean of forest and the dead. We walked up to the door and he fumbled with a large ring of keys. He glanced at me apologetically as he tried a few to no effect. Finally, the door opened on rusty hinges, and he held out a hand to invite me in. We walked inside and I saw that it resembled an empty cabin, like barely any furniture besides a table, a chair, and a small footlocker. It wasn't what I expected. I thought there might at least be a monitor and some security cameras. Near the corner I saw the only other door and a ladder that must lead to the odd lookout tower. The door closed behind us and it focused my attention back on Mr. Penny.
Well then, please take a chair. Don't worry, I'll stand. Seeing as how there is not an abundance of chairs. He chuckled half-heartedly, and I smiled slightly to not disappoint his attempt at humor. Here at Aurora Ridge, we value hard work and integrity, but we need to know that we can trust you to do your best and not let fears get in the way of your contributions. So I must ask, are you afraid of the dead and their resting places? I was taken off guard by the question, but I guessed it must be some sort of interview that he was doing first, and so I answered honestly. No, I'm not afraid of the dead or cemeteries, sir. He smiled at my answer. Well, good, very good. Do you believe in ghosts or spirits? I replied, no. Once again, Mr. Penny nodded his head and continued. Good. You see, many employees have left this job in the past. It is not for the faint of heart. I know it seems straightforward at just guarding the grounds at night, but alone and in the dark. He paused, while fixing his stare on me and adjusting his sunglasses, but not taking them off. While people forget themselves, start to see things, the mind gets tired, stories start becoming believable, and even skeptics can start to believe absurd things. And so I assure you, if you follow the rules and do not give in to crazy musings, you will do well. His smile was back, and I was wondering how many people had this job before. Speaking of doing well, we pay well for this position. The stress it puts on the mind can be harrowing, and we like to offer our night guardsmen something akin to hazard pay. Therefore, we're willing to offer a salary of $3,000 a week. My jaw almost hit the floor when I heard how much it paid. I had no idea what sort of security job paid that much, but I was stunned by the offer. Well, I see I have your attention. Good. I'll take that as a yes then. I was already nodding my head eagerly before he had even gotten into the particulars of the job. Well, good, very good. He smiled and held out his hand. I shook it without even thinking to ask why the pay was so significant and why he had called it hazard pay. Well then, please if you would follow me. We have a special place to visit and I need you to listen closely. The instructions are paramount to your success. I nodded my head and opened a note app on my phone. Mr. Penny led the way on a small path, only lit by the dim light of a small row of solar stake lamps. We ascended the hill and the path led into what looked like a thicket. Mr. Penny walked on unbothered and gestured for me to follow. The small drape of plant life brushed away easily, and a somewhat concealed glen rested beyond. The area was hauntingly beautiful. Flowers grew around the soft green grass and fireflies danced around a small tree near the center of the glen. The pretty ambience distracted from the other key features in this tiny clearing. Near the center of the glen were 4 evenly spaced gravestones. They were fairly large but not imposing, and each one had a small string hanging above them connected to tiny bells. I thought it was odd, grave bells were not used anymore, since modern medical science had long since determined a way to verify if somebody was truly deceased. Beyond the 4 graves was a small but intricately detailed mausoleum. The sight of all the scenery was jarring. I took another step toward the surreal resting place. Suddenly, Mr. Penny grabbed my shoulder, holding me back momentarily. He was looking at me as if appraising my reaction. Beautiful, isn't it? An oasis of calm separate from the drudgery of life. Your first and most important job is keeping this place safe. I know you have many questions, but I'm going to explain the most important expectations regarding security here at Aurora Ridge. Failure to comply with them will result in consequences. Understood? I nodded my head at his sudden change of tone. Good, very good. I'll be sure to remind you of that commitment. In fact, your predecessor had to be terminated for failing to follow protocol. So if you wish to remain, you will listen carefully. He sounded serious and I nodded my head and listened to the instructions. Your work hours will be 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. You're not allowed to leave until 6 a.m. unless expressly authorized. Breaks can be taken within reason, but you may not leave the grounds during breaks. You must stay at your post. Lunches must be brought in with you, no delivery services, of course. Bathroom breaks are of course permitted, but time should be strictly monitored. Sound systems should continue to be verified even during restroom breaks to ensure fast response should something happen. You are not to disturb the grounds directly. No going past or disturbing this line, especially no going near the graves. I looked to where he was pointing, and it was the small white line that seemed to stretch on to the left and right. My foot had almost crossed it, and I realized that was why Mr. Penny had stopped me. At first, it looked like it was drawn on like a football field, but I noticed when I looked closer that it seemed to be made of salt. Mr. Penny waited until I looked back up at him and continued. Absolutely no trespassers. We're closed at night. Any and all trespassers must be detained and dealt with. There is a channel on the radio that you must call if intruders are detected. Channel 6. Your job is observation. Other security personnel will detain them prior to removal by law enforcement. Understood. I nodded my head again and he moved on. As sometimes external influences can disrupt the lines of demarcation. If this occurs, please reapply any required amount of our security salt to ensure the ring stays whole at all times. This last rule is critical and you must abide. Are you paying attention? He asked sharply. I nodded my head and confirmed. If the graveyard bells ring, even if it's just one, you are to press the SOS button on your radio to signal the event. Then you must evacuate immediately. You will have exactly 3 minutes to make your way up the hill and to the mausoleum outside the ring. Then you are to use this key and enter the mausoleum. Close the doors and wait until morning. No earlier than 6 a.m. Do you understand? It was the strangest request so far. I had no idea why the bells would ring, unless somebody was buried alive. I couldn't help but ask after that one. But sir, why would they? He cut me off. They almost never do, but strange things can happen here. Even if you think it's just the wind, it's better to be safe than sorry. Go to the mausoleum, lock up and stay put. Any interaction with the bells after they ring, even waiting to watch what happens after the first 3 minutes will be a problem. Nothing will happen to you if you follow the rules. You understand? I was concerned and very skeptical, but I was more desperate to have a paycheck again. I figured I would follow whatever superstitious rules I was given if it meant not being broke anymore. I nodded my head and agreed. Yes. Mr. Penny beamed at my response. Excellent. Well then, if that's all settled, I'll show you to the tower. We have the watchtower there to keep a safe eye on the place while keeping a respectful distance. There are night vision binoculars, a directional microphone, and a radio there, along with spare batteries for the lot back in the security building. The station also has a small restroom which we've stored some extra salt in it as well, should you need to reapply it. Stay safe, stay observant, and you'll do great. Just please remember above all, watch the bells and listen for the bells. Follow the rules and you'll do just fine. He led me back to the building and I stepped inside. I saw the small footlocker that he mentioned the devices were in. When I turned back and saw Mr. Penny was not coming inside, he did an about face and smiled. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. I need you to start tonight, I hope that's alright. I was surprised, but felt like I couldn't say no without jeopardizing the opportunity, and so I reluctantly agreed. Yes, of course. Oh, fantastic, I knew that I was right about you. Take care and keep your eyes peeled and ears open. Have a good night, my friend. He closed the door, and just like that, I was alone at my new job, watching over a small gravesite for an absurd salary and following a bizarre list of rules. I looked around again briefly and realized that I should probably head up the small tower and take a look from my vantage point. It sounded like I was going to spend most of my nights up there. I opened the footlocker near the ladder and removed a surprisingly nice and expensive-looking pair of night vision binoculars. I switched it on and the battery charge was full. There was also a small directional microphone, which had a wireless headset it connected to. I also grabbed the handheld radio and switched it on, and then I stowed the items and climbed the ladder to the lonesome tower. There was a small hatch separating the lookout from the interior of the tower, and I pushed against it so hard that I almost overbalanced and slipped. It was very heavy, but it creaked open on rusted hinges, and I felt the night air on my face as I emerged into the lookout. I pulled myself the rest of the way up and then lowered the hatch so that I would at least have a floor. I saw a folding chair nearby and was grateful that I was not expected to stand there for hours on end, though I regretted not bringing something to help pass the time. I hadn't expected to work late that night, but I consoled myself with the knowledge of the payday that I had in store. A few boring hours of watching some graves would be nothing. I grabbed the smaller chair, unfolded it, and set it up so that it would be facing toward the hill that I had to watch. When I sat down, I saw that I had a good view of the surrounding land. It was all positioned just right to see directly into the little glen that housed my charge. The moon shone bright so that I didn't have to rely on the night vision functions of the binoculars. I was just looking out for people, disturbances in the line, or the bells. After a while admiring the unaltered view, I turned on the night vision and the grayscale world opened up. I panned around the small graveyard on the hill and saw everything in sharper detail. While looking closer, I noticed something odd. None of the 4 special gravestones had any names, or any markings of any kind on them. They were all blank. And despite the beautiful and perhaps expensive exclusivity of that picturesque area, none of the occupants were recorded. I found it strange, but once again I did not question my fortune in guarding them. After an hour and a half, my eyes started to get tired constantly looking out at the site. The perimeter ring was undisturbed, nothing was moving about, barely even a breeze to disturb the dead silence of it all. I switched over to the directional microphone and pointed it at the site to confirm. As I had expected, there was nothing, at first, and then I thought I heard a low groaning, a creaking sound. It was like a tree branch scraping a window. The sound alone was odd but not too concerning. After a while, I started hearing another sound. It was a persistent scratching and tapping. It continued for half an hour and I was about to go investigate, and then it suddenly stopped just as I was about to go back down. I managed to make it through the rest of the night with no further issues. Almost the entire first week was uneventful, but on Friday something happened. I had my routine prepared and I had brought snacks, entertainment, and other things to pass the time while staying focused on my objective. I couldn't listen to anything since I had to keep an ear out for the bells on the microphone, but I was able to steal a few moments of time to read a book and to look at some videos that I had downloaded on my phone. I had to download them since the one signal bar that I got at the top of the lookout went in and out, so streaming was out of the question. I made it through almost the entire night and I was so engrossed by the book that I was reading that I almost did not pick up on the sounds coming from the mic. It took me a second to realize that I was hearing voices. I propped the mic up so that I could still hear and I grabbed the binoculars. I looked out at the graves and I didn't see anything at first. And then I saw a rustling in the foliage near the mausoleum and 3 figures emerged. I had to do something. They were heading for the site. I heard the voices speaking clearer now as I trained the mic directly onto them. "How did we even get this far, Aaron? And what light are you talking about? It's too dark to see anything out here." The first voice spoke, sounding like a young man. Another one responded to the question curtly.
Oh, I know what you saw, Jess. There was a weird green light. It was coming from here. It didn't look natural. Guys, we shouldn't be here. This place, there's something not right about it. Another voice spoke up, meek and concerned. She was right about one thing, they shouldn't be there. I had to figure out what to do. I remembered the instructions and switched on the radio to channel 6. This is Ben in the tower. There are 3 trespassers by the site, going down now to investigate. There was no response, so I just moved on, grabbing my flashlight and rushing downstairs. I opened the hatch and hurried down the ladder. I made it down in good time and I threw the door open, rushing up the trail towards the graves. I reached the glen and made it through just in time to see the 3 strangers stepping over the line. They all looked fairly young, 2 girls and a boy, probably in their teens. I shouted out a warning. "Stop, this is private property." 2 of them held up their hands even though it was only a flashlight that I was holding. The 3rd looked at me with a mixture of confusion and defiance. "What is this place?" the girl had asked, sounding like she was speaking while in a dream. The other 2 looked scared and confused. I spoke again, slightly softer than before. "This is private property and it's a graveyard. You satisfied? Now clear off, you're not supposed to be here." I tried to sound commanding, but not overly hostile. Her 2 friends, I shrunk back, clearly not wanting to get into trouble. But she stepped forward and asked me a surprising question. "I came for the light. Did you see it too? There was something in it and it called me here." I held my light up and shined it at her, and her expression looked oddly distant, as if she was speaking from somewhere else and with no emotion. The mention of the light was weird. I remembered the green light that I had seen the first day. Maybe this group had seen it too. I felt guilty for detaining them, but knew that I had to get them to leave. I stepped toward them slowly, lowered my hands, and tried to get them to listen. "I'm not sure what light you think called you here, but you should all get back home. It is late and you look like high schoolers. Oh, your parents must be worried. Do you live close by?" The girl in the middle, Erin, as I heard her friends call her, offered an odd response. "I don't know. I can't remember." She sounded scared suddenly. The other 2 looked at her and then at each other. I shined the light on them again and I saw their eyes were glassy. I thought that they might have taken some psychedelics or something, since they didn't seem to be all there. But then when I looked closer, I saw a disturbing green light reflecting off their eyes. The effect was eerie, and I decided to lead them out of there. I hoped they had a number I could call to have their parents pick them up. I explained my plan to them and the stupor broke and they agreed. Yeah, let's go. I think it was a mistake coming here. Something's wrong with this place, I don't like it," the boy said as if waking up from a dream. The girls nodded and suddenly looked more lucid than when they had arrived. I was relieved and I started ushering them out. But before I could show the way back, I was startled when I heard a loudspeaker demanding that the group freeze. It was 2 large men in riot-style security gear. I didn't know why they were there, but then I remembered the radio call. I tried to explain the situation, but the 2 men brushed past me and seized 2 of the teenagers roughly. I tried to protest, but one of them knocked me down in the pursuit and I fell hard. Erin had tried to get away even while her friends had been grabbed, but as she reached the tree line, a 3rd figure got a hold of her. It was Mr. Penny. The teens fought and struggled, and I didn't like the force that the others were using to detain them. Before I could voice my concern, Mr. Penny spoke. "Very good, Ben, nice work. Looks like we got here before they could do any damage beyond disrupting the assault. We will escort them off the premises." Thank you, sir. Maybe I could help. They don't seem like they came here to cause trouble. Maybe we can let them go without involving the police." Mr. Penny chuckled and then responded, "Oh, they should be so lucky. No, we'll let them go after they resalt the circle. Then we'll put them back where they belong."
But you must not concern yourself since we are here and will be repairing the damage. You're free to go for the last few hours. Go home and get some sleep. I'll handle it from here." I didn't like the situation. I looked at the teens and they weren't shouting or protesting. They just seemed to be staring at the graves like they were in a trance. I thought that I saw the weird light emerging from the ground for a split second before it was gone. And then I saw the two men in riot gear holding large bags of salt. It looks like one of them was moving tools and I thought that I saw a shovel in his hands. My heartbeat quickened and I was getting nervous about what was happening. But as I was about to argue about going home, Mr. Penny stood up and walked over to me. He put an arm on my shoulder and turned me around to face him directly. I saw that he was holding his sunglasses in his hand, and I realized it was the first time that I had seen him take them off. "Oh, don't work too hard. Just go home. Now." I remembered looking up and facing him. After that, I don't remember what I saw. The next thing I knew, it was 6:15 in the morning. I was asleep in my car parked just outside my apartment. I had no recollection of how I got back. Somehow I had left, driven home, and fallen asleep in my car in those last 2 hours. Something was seriously wrong, but I had no way of explaining just what it was. I had wanted to talk to Mr. Penny about the strange experience, but he was absent for most of the next week. I grew more nervous about what had happened, but I kept going back. I did not like it, but felt like I had no choice. That weekend, I had another strange experience. Somebody was knocking on my apartment door on Saturday night. When I answered it, I saw a large bald man standing there. He stared at me for a moment before doing anything and then pulled out a small manila folder and handed it to me. I was confused, but when I looked, I saw that it had $3,000 in cash stuffed inside. The large man spoke in a dull and monotone voice. "Aurora Ridge thanks you for your work. Have a good evening." The man reached into his coat and pulled out a pair of sunglasses that looked a lot like Mr. Penny's. And just as he was about to place them on his head, I swear that I saw a glint of green that didn't look natural. He turned and walked away, and I was disturbed that my paychecks were going to be delivered in that manner. The only silver lining was the lack of any normal payroll process, which meant that I had more than I had expected due to the lack of taxes being withheld. When I returned on Monday night, I found that I had a visitor. It was not Mr. Penny, but an ancient-looking man who wore the dirt-speckled coveralls of the groundskeeper. He looked me up and down and scoffed as I entered. I waved to greet him and knew it must be Horace. He was holding a large bag of salt, and I saw several more in the corner. He finally spoke to me. "Oh, you must be Charlie's replacement. I haven't seen that big bald idiot around, but he owes me a pack of cigarettes. And though if you're here, it means old Charlie must have made a mistake. Anyway, it's windy tonight. I brought some extra salt. You're going to need it. And don't let the line break. I don't want that light anywhere near the garden or anywhere else where it can get into. Hey, don't forget, or it's your job." He brushed past me and shot me one last hateful look before departing, slamming the rattling door as he did. I was shocked and confused. What had happened to Charlie? Then I considered the large bald man I had not seen before who delivered my pay. He sounded a lot like this Charlie, but hadn't he been fired? Either way, it did not matter to me. I had to get to work. I climbed the ladder up to the lookout, and after the first 30 minutes, the wind whipped up so strongly that the lines of salt began to blow away and several sections were barren. I nearly spat out my coffee and knew that I had to get down there quickly. I rushed back down and grabbed one of the bags of salt that Horace had left. It was heavy, and I wished that I had some way of moving multiple bags, but there was no dolly or truck to do so. I hefted the bag up the hill and opened it, moving to where I had seen the broken section of the ring, and I started pouring. As soon as I had finished, I saw that more sections required repair as well. I made several more trips, and I was getting tired quickly. I knew that I had to do it, but still I didn't understand why it was so important to have the ring up at all times. I managed to patch all the larger holes in the line and felt like I had walked the perimeter a dozen times to check. There was one last segment that had a visible break, but I fell down huffing and puffing. I had to stop and catch my breath. Once I did, I could go get another bag and fix it. As I sat there and looked at the silent sight, I shuddered when I remembered the night where the teens had broken in. I hoped that Mr. Penny had let them go like he said he would. I didn't like the way they looked at the strange light, or how I had lost the last 2 hours of my night when I tried to ask him about it. I looked on, and as I caught my breath, I saw something inexplicable. There was a corona of that green light emerging from the ground near the edge where the break in the line was. I saw a small possum walk toward the light. It moved in a straight line, and it didn't seem bothered by the fact that I was watching it. Then I saw the light. It seemed to stretch out and beyond the ring and reach out to the small animal. The glint of green that reflected in its eyes was terrible, and I stood up and rushed back down the hill to grab another bag and complete the circle again. When I got back, the animal was gone. I couldn't be sure, but I thought that I saw scratch marks on the ground near the ring, like something had tried digging there. I finished the ring, and mercifully the wind had died down. As I tried to understand what had just happened, I heard something that froze my heart. I heard the chiming of a bell. I looked on in horror as one of the gravestone bells was slowly ringing. It was not the wind, it was not any external force. The bell was ringing, and I had to act fast. I pressed the SOS button on the radio as I had been instructed, and I looked at the stone mausoleum nearby. A morbid part of me wanted to wait and see what was happening. It had to be some trick. It couldn't really be ringing on its own. Or worse, it couldn't be somebody buried alive. I had no time for questions. I remembered Mr. Penny's warning, and I went to the mausoleum, searching for the silver key, and opened it. I was so fast that I had almost 2 minutes to spare of the 3 that I was told that I had. I took one last look outside and confirmed that the small bell was still ringing before closing the heavy door and locking it again, sealing me off from whatever was happening outside. I expected something at the 3-minute mark, but I heard nothing. There was no window, so I couldn't see anything, but I swear that I saw that green light glowing softly from somewhere near the graves and peeking under the heavy door. I realized that I still had my headset for the directional mic turned on. I had propped the mic on the chair, pointing down at the graves while I moved the salt. When I put the headphones on, I heard an odd static. I wasn't sure what could be making the sounds, but after waiting for almost an hour, I heard something else. There was a consistent scraping, digging sound, followed by a loud crash, like someone hitting wood with metal. I held my breath, and after a long moment, I thought that I heard a voice. "No, not yet. This one needs more time. They aren't ready. Just a bit more, put them back." And then I heard the wooden crash again, followed by more digging. After a while, all the sounds had fallen silent. I was left cold and alone in that dark tomb, terrified but ultimately oblivious to what had just occurred right outside. I considered asking Mr. Penny about the bells again, but I didn't know if I could trust whatever his answer might be. Whatever was going on at Aurora Ridge, it was getting more concerning by the day. I spent almost another entire week there in tense anticipation of something terrible happening. I was getting freaked out, and despite the large payday, I wasn't sure if it was smart to keep showing up. It was Thursday on week 3 that the reality of the situation was laid bare, and I saw the thing I could never unsee. It was a cold night, and I feared the wind would whip the salt off the ring again, or worse, that I would hear the bells ring out in the cold night air. I did not want to have to go near those graves in that mausoleum again, or see that glimmer of green light that they shone when you looked at them just right. I was already on edge. When I arrived and when I saw the rain beginning to fall, my mood did not improve. I climbed the ladder to my lookout and struggled to hear anything over the deluge of rain. I panned around with my binoculars and saw the hideous aurora of light emerging and reflecting the water in the air like a disturbing monocolored rainbow. I wanted to look away, but the sight was captivating. I felt myself being drawn into the morbid spectacle, and I took an involuntary step forward. I managed to stop myself before I fell over the edge. Something clattered down the roof and smashed into the ground, and I realized that I had dropped the directional microphone. I cursed my bad luck, but was grateful that it had been that and not me that fell over. I looked over at the gravesite and saw something surprising. Despite the wind moving the salt the other day, the water from the rain did not seem to be dissolving the ring like I had expected. I was ready to bolt down and reapply it when I knew the rain was falling, but somehow it had stayed there unaffected. I tried to distract myself by reading for a while, but I was paranoid by the lack of a microphone. I had gone down to the Foot Locker to find another, but it was empty. There must have been only one. I tried the radio to call for help and get another, but all I got was static. Since I couldn't hear anything, I tried to be hyper-vigilant with binoculars, and I looked around frequently. In another few hours, I was getting tired, but I was glad that the terrible night was almost over. All the coffee I had that night forced me to take a restroom break. When I got back up the ladder, I looked out again, expecting to see nothing but rain splashing off the ground. But instead, I saw movement. To my horror, I looked again and saw the gentle movement. It was 3 or 4 bells ringing side to side. I had no idea how long they had been at that point. I panicked. I pressed the SOS button on the radio and half climbed, half slid down the ladder, landing hard at the bottom. I sprinted up the hill, and as soon as I had entered the clearing, I saw that hellish light bathing the gravestones. The green glow seemed to pulse in time with the maddening chiming of the bells. I rushed to the mausoleum as the storm intensified. I fumbled for the keys but felt an odd tinge of static, and that in the next instant made me involuntarily fall back and throw the keys just after unlocking the mausoleum door. I was glad that I had leaped back, since in the next instant, a jagged bolt of incandescent green lightning struck the keys near the mausoleum and hit with such tremendous force that a large crack split a section off the front of the building. I looked up in a terrible instant and saw the storm had taken on an otherworldly quality that made me dizzy to look at. I picked myself up and dove into the mausoleum, closing the heavy door behind me. As I tried to catch my breath after the insane events, I felt a chill and I realized that something was wrong. The structure was damaged and I could see through the fractured facade of the wall. I could see everything now. And what I saw was a large group of hooded figures gathered around the gravestones. One wore those distinct sunglasses of Mr. Penny. Others had shovels and were digging at the ground by the gravestones. Piles of dirt were dug up and cast aside as they moved deeper. I heard 3 shovels striking wood in unison. I looked on in numb horror as the green lightning struck the ground around where they had dug up 3 of the 4 graves. They bent down in unison and pulled the caskets out. I wasn't able to see who or what was in the coffins, but something about the way that they stood around them was disturbing. I heard a ringing sound in my ears and a loud voice spoke out. It was terrible and commanding, and I was shocked when I saw that it was Mr. Penny who seemed to be speaking in a voice that sounded nothing like his own. "Bring them forward." 2 of the hooded figures brought a limp body up towards him, and I nearly cried out when I saw the body and I recognized the girl. It was Erin, one of the teens who had broken in with her friends to see the light. She was unresponsive, but Mr. Penny reached down and touched her head. And then the 2 robed figures moved her body up toward him, and he took off his glasses and I suppressed a horrified gasp as I saw the empty pits that hid underneath. He looked like he should be blind.
He had no eyes, yet he reached out to touch the face of the young girl, and a terrible green light filled his hollow eyes and seemed to run down his hands and flow like a terrible river into Aaron's limp body. And then the eldritch green light flashed, sparked, and a dull rumble was heard, followed by a gasp of air. She was alive, but as her eyes fluttered open, I saw the same green eyes glowing with an inhuman fire. They were about to repeat the ritual when I heard mutterings, and one of the robed figures asked Mr. Penny about the fourth grave. He held up a finger and then pointed in my direction at the mausoleum, and all I could hear was, "Soon." I huddled down, unable to look at the scene any longer. The sound of a bell ringing began to make my head pound, and I was struggling to breathe. I blacked out the next moment. When I woke up, it was morning. I stole a peek outside and saw that the grave sites were just as they had been before. Undisturbed, even the soil looked unbothered. I started to wonder if it could have all been just a terrible nightmare. I inched closer, almost crossing the line of salt, and saw no evident trace of anything. No footsteps, no disturbed earth. Even the grass looked healthy and untouched. I rubbed my eyes in disbelief, slowly turned around and laughed. I drove home in a daze, conscious but bewildered. When I got back, I tried to process what I saw last night. I decided to look into Mr. Penny and see if I could find something out about him and what the hell kind of operation he was running. When I started looking, I was horrified at my revelation. Victor Penny, the original owner of Aurora Ridge Cemetery, had died 85 years ago. No known descendants and no family. I remembered the hollow eyes from that night, the green flames burning in his skull. And then I saw on the news that 3 teens had been reported missing, and when I saw their faces and heard their names announced, my heart sank. It was the 3 from that night. All of them had been standing right in front of me a little over a week ago. The implications made me sick when I considered the graves, 3 of them, 3 people taken, 3 bells ringing out, and then the sight of one of them screaming back to life in the hands of Mr. Penny. I stayed home that night. I couldn't sleep, and the nervous tension made me paranoid. I started writing, and somebody knocked on my door. It was nearly midnight, and I grabbed a kitchen knife on my way to check the front door. I looked out the peephole, and I nearly gasped aloud when I saw the face of that young girl, Erin. She was standing there outside my door, smiling. I almost reached for the door, but as I did, she spoke. "Hello, Ben. Please remember to call out if you're feeling sick in the future. Don't forget it's payday tomorrow. We have something for you back at Aurora Ridge. Please come back. It won't take long and you can finally find a place where you belong. Think of the light, the bell. The last one can be for you. The experience is breathtaking. Take the night and think it over. Mr. Penny was right. I can see things now. Things that I could never see before. You can too." She left at some point, and I was alone again. That was last night. I have not left my house since. They keep showing up, beckoning me back to that place where souls have returned to bathe in that monstrous light that claims the living and the dead. In the distance, I swear that I could hear the bell, the 4th one chiming away, calling me to the deepest parts of the earth, to find out the secrets of the realm of dark stone and death. The sound is getting louder, but I will try and ignore it tonight. I need to finish this account. I need to warn others away from that realm of death and rebirth. The light is in my apartment now. I know it is, and the ringing sound is making me feel numb. It's calling to me, and I don't know if I can hide forever. I need to rest now and pray to God that I'm still here when I wake up.